Cerberus needs a new toy.
Yes.
I'm on it. Note to self, bring home bones of enemies for Cerberus to chew upon.
A cat's life is hard. You should always pamper them.
No. Excellent. This will do.
Thanks.
Hello and welcome back to the Smite Pro League, brought to us by our good friends over at Prime. If you do not have a Prime membership, you should probably jump on that because you get free shipping, music, movies, and more just with a Prime membership. And then if you link that over to your Twitch account, you get free games and free stuff to go with the games that you already have. So make sure that you are making the most out of your Prime membership. And thank you so much to Prime Gaming for being this title sponsor of Season 9 of the SPL and finding so much great stuff for all of the viewers out there and for us here in the studio. My name is J-Mag. I got Mifflin joining me fresh off the cast. Now on the desk as we get prepared for our second set of the day, the Jade Dragons and the Oni Warriors. And I think the setup that Dave had before was maybe a good indication of how this set will go. Depending on the Jade Dragons that we get and depending on the Oni Warriors that we get, this could be a 2-0 either way or a very close 2-1 matchup.
Yeah, I mean, both of these teams have shown that at times they could just dominate, right? The Jade Dragons, when they're firing on all cylinders, feel like they're unstoppable, and the same could be said of the Oni Warriors. So I think it's a question of consistency, and I don't have the answer to that. I don't know which one of them is more consistent.
Well, we'll have to see which one brings out the consistency today, our second match of the day, in our first day of Week 4 of the SPL. We had the Olympus Bolts get a 2-1 over the Tartarus Titans just moments ago. Now we move on to the Dragons and the Warriors, and then tomorrow we get the Bolts and the Kings, Levi's and the Valks. We got all kinds of great matchups to round out our fourth week of our second phase. And taking a look at the standings, with that win from the Olympus Bolts, they bump themselves up to the top of the standings for now. And the Jade Dragons and the Oni Warriors, 3rd and 5th seed, but still sitting at that same standing, 3 and 2. Win today will elevate those up one spot.
Yeah, a lot of implication on the standings and the rest of the phase, but dependent on this matchup. I'm really thinking that both teams are going to probably come out the door with some new strategies today. We've seen, even in that first set between the Bolts and the Titans, I would argue completely different looks at both of those teams. So it feels like maybe the most recent patches have been a transitory period for the SPL.
And we did see some of the change-ups, at least as of last week. We saw some of the mages make their way into the dual lane, and I'm talking the non-traditional kind of mages that, we're more accustomed to seeing in the mid lane is what made its way over there. Things like Freya, obviously still sticking around. And for a player like Vote on the Oni Warriors, that's right up his wheelhouse. I mean, he has been playing the Freya since it was available, at least at this level of play. Once again, the buffs to her made her a very enticing god to be picked up. And Vote has been pretty much running that any opportunity he's gotten the duo lane.
Yeah, I feel like Vote is a very slept-on player, right? Like, he is dominant. He's dropped the NBK from his name, but you can't take away what that title implied. He is a natural-born killer. He is just dominant given the right circumstances. Doesn't have to be the Freya, Chernobog, Standard Hunters, doesn't really matter. He is always capable of getting into these team fights. He's always willing to get aggressive. I mean, even in the last couple of clips, Vote's in the front line. He is getting active from minute 0. And as you said, Freya, one of the best selections for this guy, and certainly one of the best selections in Smite in general right now. I believe it was Zapman that had said, yeah, Freya used to be a late game god, and she used to be a mid game god. Now she's early, mid, and late. I got to think that just bodes well for Vote.
Yeah, especially with the buff that did come to her pulse, the extra damage. Has hit a very slight nerf this patch, has been partially reverted back. It initially was 15 damage at all ranks, now toned back about 5, so still a nice little boost, that extra damage at that rank. But couple that with the Conduit gem, I mean, it's given Freya so much pressure in those lanes. And Vote has just been a player as of recent who's not afraid to take these 1v1s fight. You see a half HP Ho Yi and now full health Fenrir jumping in. Most players probably not willing to take that fight, but Vote has been one to try and at least stand his ground.
But Vote is a player, and I think the Oni Warriors as a whole kind of treat him as such that he's going to be alone on an island. We don't often see massive rotations over towards the dual lane. Vote, for the most part, has been trusted by his team to just hold his own in lane, then rotate to the team fight. And I think a lot of his picks are reflective of that. If he wants 1v1s, he's picking guys that 1v1 on their own, things like the Ull or the Ho Yi. If he wants to scale into the late game and just be there for his team, Chernobog and Freya comes to mind. I think he is certainly a player that is worth facilitating, but the Oni Warriors at times have shown that they are very much so willing to play through either mid or the solo lane. More often, the solo. Nika has been a star for this squad.
And while Vote has been a little bit more standard in his play style, we have Panic Cat on the opposite side, who's been kind of anything but standard with his picks. And if you weren't here for the SPL waiting room and you're wondering, man, what's that little purple crown on top of Panic Cat's head? He's the MVP, the most valuable primer from week 3 of the SPL. A dominant performance out of him. A 7-0-7 Freya game, a 4-3-6, a 4-1-3 Yu Huang game. All of those just in the exact same set against the Scarabs, not even including the fact he had a 5-2-6 Hou Yi and a 7-0-5 Chernobog. All of these in the exact same 2 weeks of play out there. Panic Cat has been popping off, and he's been doing it with a multitude of gods.
And he has just been dominant in lane. I mean, that was up against Stu, where you're talking about those stats, the Jade Dragons up against the Solar Scarabs, and every single game, he got Stu like stuck in the tier 2 tower. He was taking fights in the purple buff, at the red, on his own. Panic Cat, another player that I think we don't see too many rotations towards his lane, but more so because you just trust Panic Cat to do whatever it is that he wants, and he does it incredibly well. Even this Yu Huang, I had questioned. I was casting this, and I'm like, man, why are you taking Yu Huang in the 1v1? Why do you really want him in the dual lane? Panic Cat, he said to me, well, yeah, I was just going to dominate Stu. It's just like a good matchup. If he misses Banish, I'm just going to win. I was like, well, what happens if he hits Banish? He's like, he's not going to hit Banish. And that was the end of the conversation. So Panic Cat, a player that I think maybe even personifies the entirety of the pathos of the Jade Dragons. Play with confidence and just do what you're going to do, and Panic Cat does exactly that.
And he's playing it pretty damn well at that point. I mean, when you're boasting a full set of games up against Scarabs and you're only having 4 deaths total on your ADC, who we've been seeing has been a lot of priority in a lot of these matches. We go back to just that Tartarus Titans versus Bolts game. Barracuda constantly under fire by Cyclone Spin. Cyclone Spin constantly back under fire by the rest of the Bolts. But we did get a chance to sit down with both of the hunters from these teams to kind of talk to them a little about and see how their thoughts are on the phase so far.
As a team, I'd say our biggest strength is flexibility and the ability to play a lot of different characters in different roles and kind of just adapt to all different types of metas and play styles that occur. Our biggest weakness, Mike saying, I'm fine, when he's 100% not fine and dies, and then we get baited and all die for him. That actually is a pretty big weakness. Maybe not our biggest. Our biggest weakness is probably inconsistency. I think some days we wake up feeling really good and play really well, and then sometimes we're kind of just not doing anything, doing a whole lot of nothing.
As a team, I think our biggest strength is just like our cohesiveness. I think we work really well together, especially in 5v5 fights. And our biggest weakness is probably just Neil, just being himself.
If we had to use all 5 bans on a single player, maybe Cubo. If you ban out Cubo and he's not hyped to a set, that's like 50% less team synergy by them.
If I had to use all 5 bans to target one person, I'm going with Mike. He's just, he's just the biggest threat, in person and on the battleground.
Who stepped up the most for the Warriors? Cubo, probably Cubo. Well, Worlds Cubo was a beast, so it's hard to say. I think he's playing back towards the Worlds level, like when they won. It's either Cubo or Vote. I feel like Vote's a really slept on ADC, and he's kind of been popping off like all split, or last split and the split, so. Yeah, one of Cubo or Vote.
The person that impressed me the most this year is Pegon. He's actually really surprised me coming up from SEC. He's kind of just styling on people. I think for our set against the Dragons, the most important phase of the game is the early game. I feel like if we don't get snowballed on, we can win the 5v5 fights.
Typically, the Warriors games go pretty late, so mid to late game is usually the most important part of the game. I kind of feel like that's with most games, but the Warriors definitely take it pretty late. Like, they're okay with sitting there for 20 minutes and just picking late game comps. So, yeah, mid game to late game.
I do like how both of the hunters end up throwing their supports under the bus at the start of the interview. What's our
pretty
biggest
messed up.
problem? Well, it's when Mike says that he's fine, but he's really not fine. What's our biggest problem for Vote? Oh, it's just Neil. Just Neil in that case. But all jokes aside from that one, a lot of confidence between these two teams, and also from both the hunter players, recognizing that the early game is probably the most important for both of them. That's where the Dragons typically find a lot of their dominance. It's where they're able to get their best foot forward. And for the Oni Warriors, that's typically when they've been struggling the most.
So if the Jade Dragons are able to snowball, the fears of the Oni Warriors will have rung true. Otherwise, the Jade Dragons have put respect on the Oni Warriors' stronger portion of the game, mid to late, generally where they find their strengths, and Vote tends to agree. Says, hey, our best asset as a team is our cohesion in the team fight, that 5-on-5 engagement. We're always on the same page, and the Jade Dragons have certainly taken notice. So I am curious to see how this one pans out. The Oni Warriors say, hey, we're concerned about that early game, so they can go one of two ways. They can either compensate by picking a lot of early game picks themselves, and then potentially have a weaker late game just by nature of fear of the Jade Dragons. Jade Dragons say they're concerned about the late. Well, I don't think they were too worried about their presence in the early, but we might be seeing a draft where they try and, I suppose, backload some of their strength to match up against the Warriors in the 5-on-5.
And one of the questions thrown in there was, if you had to expend all of your bans onto a single person, to try and put that one player down for the Jade Dragons and Panda Cat, he said, well, if we can put all of our bans towards Cuvo Fred, that looks pretty good for us. So far, it at least reflected partially in that. 2 bans thrown his way, Dodgy and Osiris, throwing a Muzen Cobb in there. Oni Warriors, they'll ban away Yamoja, no surprise with that one being taken away, and then Uller and Mercury. And that leaves open Chernobog, who still rings true as that #1 hunter pick for these teams if left open.
Decent pressure throughout the early, phenomenal global presence in the late game. You don't really lose out on too many 1v1s. If you're worried about ganks coming your way, you'd be hard-pressed to find a safer hunter. I mean, Heimdall, I guess, but the ability to jump onto a wall or CC immunity in the ultimate, just hiding in the air, waiting for your own team to rotate through for the counter gank, all makes Chernobog a very versatile pick. But a pick that we had talked a whole lot about during the initial portions of this death segment was this Freya. She's so strong in the early, she's so strong in the late, and it does really just fit Vote's playstyle, and the Oni Warriors get it early.
And now hovering the Yu Huang for the Jade Dragons, something that Panda Cat played last week. We know that Pagon is also capable of playing in that mid lane, so could leave some flexibility for the Jade Dragons and maybe leave a couple of question marks for us on the desk exactly where those 2 picks might end up going out. RDO does get picked up along with the Freya for the Oni Warriors, something that Nika and just about any of the solo laners have found some success on. I mean, 70% win rate over 10 games so far in this phase, and then a Sobek for the Jade Dragons, another high win rate god so far in the SPL. And this Yu Wong gets locked in. So, ultimate question now is for the Jade Dragons, where does this Yu Wong actually end up going?
Well, as of now, you just have to say it's going mid, right? I mean, we don't have all the data, and even if we did, I'm sure they'd keep us guessing. But looking at the draft as it is, Chernobog in the duo lane, just a tried and true standard, Yu Huang in mid. For that early presence, early fight potential, very good. But there is the note of Panda Cat saying Yu Huang is just really good into Freya. He really liked that matchup, and he made it look good up against Stewart. So there is some flex potential here. I wouldn't be too surprised if Yu Huang goes over to the duo, but if we're just talking like standard Smite, I'd prefer to see it in mid.
Maybe for all of our sanity, that might be where the Jade Dragons throw their hat at least. Nemesis, the final pick for the Oni Warriors before we go into the second wave of bans. It was maybe at least a bit more clear-cut for the Oni Warriors draft, might make these bans a little bit easier for the Jade Dragons with the dual lane of Freya at least locked in, then jungle Nemesis and RDO in the solo lane. Can take some bans towards the mid for the Jade Dragons. Meanwhile, the Oni Warriors will go ahead and take some shots over at PBM, a player that they showed at least a little bit of concerns with being a powerhouse for their squad. Fafnir being taken away, that's going to take away some of that objective presence.
I am curious. That Fafnir ban kind of indicates slightly to me that the Oni Warriors are saying that it is more likely that Chernobog is going over to the duo lane. Otherwise, Coerce just doesn't really synergize well with Yu Huang in the laning phase. But that was the matchup that we saw, Yu Huang plus Fafnir last time around over in the duo lane for the Jade Dragons. The Oni Warriors concerned, I suppose, about that combo. It's a whole lot of damage early. Hammer into the fire, into the cultivated Dow. Really is hard to deal with. Dueling dragons on the tail end, if anybody's able to escape, could really finish off some of these kills from a massive range. And the Oni Warriors don't want to have to deal with that. But the weakness of this Jade Dragons draft as it stands is we're lacking in pressure. We haven't exactly picked the roles, I'm assuming, that would generate pressure. Jungler is still TBD from the Jade Dragons. That could be one place to try and find a little bit of early aggression, which should be the goal. You do not want this Freya scaling for free into the late game. You do not want her free farming. Same could be said of Nemesis. So I would like to see something aggressive from the Dragons in the bottom two.
Maybe surprising to see that Khepri has fallen all the way to a 10th ban here for the Jade Dragons. Couple that with the Morgan and then the Fafnir from earlier in the Oni Warriors and the Fenrir to couple alongside there. So bans kind of scattered throughout. No one singular dedicated role, that we have seen a lot of the Fenrir go over towards the support role for the Jade Dragons in that instance, but we've also seen Sam for Soccer pop off on that god multiple times through. So now for the Oni Warriors, You're looking at Chernobog, Sobek, Yu Huang. You can see there's a lot of safety, at least in that composition. For the Oni Warriors, they already can get some pressure in this lane now with Freya and Terra locked in. And assuming that mid is the only role left open, what kind of is left there for Dardes to try and take up against the Dragons?
Dardes is one to go towards either his just standard picks. Like when I think of Dardes, Discordia comes to mind at times. I wouldn't be surprised if like a Hera gets locked in. But considering that we haven't seen exactly what the jungle matchup is, once we do, the Jade Dragons will shine some light on what Dardes is really capable of going towards. But if we're trying to guess blanket statement, like what just works all the time, can't get more standard than like a Tiamat.
I haven't seen very much Tiamat thinking about it. A very, very limited showing in the SPL, especially this year. I mean, she was one of the #1 gods to go to back in Season 8. A couple of nerfs, a couple of change-ups to some of the item builds in the meta. We just have not seen Tiamat very much. But when we do, still able to show just why she was a top pick in the previous seasons. The Jade Dragons really taking their time on these last 2 picks. Again, still waiting to see exactly where this Chernobog and this Yu Huang do get locked up in, whether this Chernobog goes over to the Soul Lane like we've seen before from the Jade Dragons. They're no stranger to running the multi-hunter, multi-carry style of composition with even just a single tank out there. But they could just be throwing us all for a loop and could just be playing very standard Smite.
I'm thinking it's Yu Huang duo, man. The more I look at it and I'm thinking back, Panda Cat telling me he just really likes that matchup in the Freya. He wouldn't lie to me. Maxime's not lying to me, though. So I think it is not unlikely that it's Yu Huang in the duo. Would that leave Sobek to the solo lane, Jing Shen support, Hunbot's jungle, Chernobog mid? I don't hate that. The only thing I dislike is anytime Chernobog plays through mid, you don't get the full value of that global ultimate. Having it in the duo, giving you the ability to just transfer yourself all the way over to the soul lane, no way for a Freya to match that rotation, would be nice.
Is that all?
But it's Panda Cat, and Panda Cat plays for the 1v1.
Wait a second. Achilles is not a mage. He's not a hunter.
Ardio support? Achilles support?
Okay, so who's going mid right now is my question.
Freya? Oh, Terra mid, I guess. I mean, like, if you're the Valks, you're
I'm about
really
to say,
going
if we're the Valkyries, yes, I can see the Terra mid. I don't necessarily see that with the Oni Warriors. So I'm just left with the biggest question mark is Ardio Terra. I mean, we could bounce one of those between, support solo or whatever. Ardio most likely to solo, but this Achilles is now throwing me for a complete loop, Miff.
Yeah, Achilles. I mean, there's like a lot of flex potential here. Where do you want your aggression? That's generally where you want your Achilles. I suppose we've seen Nemesis solo in the past as well. Super weird composition for the Oni Warriors. I'm not even willing to guess, all right? I'm not willing to, but what I will tell you about how this draft is going to work is that their late game team fight, if it's at an even state, going to be so hard to deal with. That is a steadfast front line for the Oni Warriors with good peel potential, decent sustain, and you've got your king protection composition for a Freya. I don't hate that. Wherever these roles land, the whole game plan for the Oni Warriors is withstand the storm early, get to the 5-on-5 grouping.
Yeah, and that's where the Oni Warriors and Vote specifically was talking in that interview. That's where we feel that we are the strongest, says Vote, is these late game team fights, that synergy that they had, that cohesion more than anything else. So if the Oni Warriors can get to late game, good for them. But the Jade Dragons, I mean, they've drafted some of this early pressure. I mean, I think Hun Bats, and I think immediately, as soon as level 5 hits, pick a lane, drop that ultimate, get a kill.
Yeah, maybe at least burn some beads, come back, do the exact same thing again. I want to see this Hunbots over near the Oni Warriors dual lane, or wherever this Freya ends up landing. If she's in mid, great for Sam for soccer, right? Like a much easier time to rotate there. But that's got to be the head you're hunting. If you are Hunbots on the Jade Dragons, get to the Freya. I didn't say players because I don't know who's playing what, but that's what it needs to be.
For some reason, I'm thinking this Achilles might be going over to the dual lane. We saw the Bellona, the Warrior ADC previously. Maybe the Achilles is going over to Vote, so we have another Warrior in the dual lane. I don't know. I'm mostly speculating at this point. We're going to have to wait until we get into the game to see exactly where the roles are going to line out. But I think it's very similar. Anytime I talk with you about it, anytime I talk with Trelly, it's always wherever Freya is, put that pressure out there, make sure that she's behind. Because, I mean, right now, as Zapman and many other Hunters players have said, Freya is no longer the mid or the late game god. She is an all stages of play type of god.
And the answer of putting your pressure around the Freya is not new. We haven't broken new ground.
No, that's definitely nothing new.
That's 10 years old. She came out in 2012, okay? We've been putting pressure on Freya
time.
all the way since back then. But the difference is, and you touch on it lightly, she's no longer that weakness in the early. She can fight back very early on.
Well, I have no clue where the Oni Warriors are going to put all the pieces together. Instead, we're going to let Dave and Gore take care of that in game number 1.
Yeah, luckily I have no idea either. We're going to have to get into game number 1 in order to find out. The creativity continues in our second and final set of the day. Gore, you and I were pretty on point, and we'll end on point as well. Into game 1 between the Oni Warriors and the Dragons we go. Wow, so all guesses were wrong as far as the Oni Warriors go. So Nika on Artio solo. It's Achilles jungle. It's really Dardes on Nemesis mid.
I was looking at it. There's not a whole ton of it that is that crazy, right? Like we've already seen Yu Huang go dual lane last week, and admittedly, you go back 3-4 years, geez, longer maybe at this point because time keeps moving forward. It used to be very common to have a swap like this. So yeah, like we've seen Sobek solo. Admittedly, doesn't get a lot done, right? At this point in the game, when I see a Sobek, I see an Artio. I don't know that there's a lot of fighting that happens on that side of the map. They are channeled for the late game. You go towards the left lane. Yu Huang should have I would think an advantage early on, being a mage, but seems to have some struggle clearing. I mean, Freya with those buffs recently, and specifically Vote, has been really good on this pick. But this isn't like crazy outlandish. It is just that Nemesis. And you would think that during that time, while I was talking about everything else, I would have been like back of my mind trying to come up with a good reason for it. And realistically, it's just that she does exactly what you want. I mean, if I look at this comp, you've got frontliner, skip Dardes for a second, Neil Ma, frontliner, so a lot of healing that comes from Nika and Neil, a lot of good presence. You've got an execute available, but good stuns, good setup. And 3 really, really tanky bodies in front of a Freya that are going to be able to say, hey, here's a stun for you. Just put all that pulse of radiate damage over here. Here's somebody. And that's what Dardes does even better, right? It's the slow that comes through, but you get that ult as well. They can choose one person every team fight, and they're just not allowed to play.
Yeah.
You got to get there, but once you get there, you should be pretty good.
Does feel like we're putting a lot of eggs in the Vote basket, right? As far as consistent, standard, team fight burn. I mean, it's Vote, right? I mean, you'll have
it's Vote.
You'll have Achilles building potentially more
Probably
damaging style of build. Dardes potentially a bit more of a hybrid build, but they both want to play like assassins. So you don't have that sit back, deal mage style of damage. You just have Vote. So that's a unique look at this composition. Jade Dragons, of course, flex around a little bit, but somehow Chernobog mid Yu Huang duo is far from the weirdest style of composition that we've seen here lately. Looks like Panicat going to go Warlock Staff. I mean, maybe the opening is that, like, in early levels, the Yu Huang feels pretty comfortable, and Vote on this Freya no longer something you can just steamroll early on in the lane. So maybe you're matching up some good early game with some good early game. Don't know if we'll see much over on this side of the map either. But Desk really hoped that come level 5, we'd see Sanford Soccer, the one that maybe starts to break some of the, I'm going to use a good word, break some of the quagmires that we see in a few of these different lanes.
Like the guy from Family Guy.
Or
I know it's a word outside of that, but I could literally not tell you the definition. You could ask me right now to describe, even with context clues, I would fail at telling you what that means.
It is a big swath of, like, insurmountable, swampy, either land, if you're speaking literally, or it's like a situation where there
makes sense, because like a mire, marsh, very similar.
Right, so just something you're stuck in. And so whether it could be the laning phase, I think maybe Sanford Soccer, according to the desk, the one they want to see break the laning phase, and that's what's happening over in solo. Nika gets a nice heal. No chance Nika gets out, right? Gallops away. Sanford Soccer will not finish off the kill on Nika. Cubo Fred, though, in over from the jungle. Execute range reach just barely. And Fino-K will live as well.
There is like a 3-inch difference of Nika dying there and Nika living there.
Yeah.
And it all comes from that Fear No Evil and whether or not he gets pushed fully into the tower and takes a shot or doesn't. He doesn't, and he gets to walk away there. I mean, a massive heal from the RDO keeps him chugging. And then it comes down to how badly do you want this if you're Sam, right?
Yep.
You hear the Achilles behind you. You might be able to close the gap, should have a monkey to throw out there and teleport to, but it just seems like an overcommitment, especially to dive the tower.
Could be a kill on the Fino-K here, but the dash, enough to get out to safety. Panicat I think his dash may still be on cooldown. Used it just a moment ago. Oh, the rotation in from Pagon, though. As Chernobog makes his way to his home in the duo lane. Sprint used. Vote. No more Valkyrie's discretion. And no more life. That'll be first blood to the Jade Dragons. And Mike, more specifically.
Now here's where things get a little more complicated. That was pretty much par for the course, right? Big, heavy investment from the Warriors. Mid laner rotating over to the blue buff. Leaves the duo lane a little out to dry. Chernobog can rotate wherever the hell he wants, so he does so. And I think Pagon has a good head on his shoulders to make that kind of decision that quickly and go in for the kill. But the thing that's going to be problematic for the Warriors isn't necessarily that kill. Losing first blood hurts, but you know what, 600 gold swinging over in their favor and being separated by like 500, it's not a huge deal at this point. That's how that goes out. The experience is going to matter. Having Mike with a little bit of an experience lead, specifically Panda Cat, means that lane can get a lot easier for him to potentially control and keep this Freya from farming as simply. But really, I think it showcases a problem that the Warriors are going to need to avoid, which is if all of your plan is this guy is going to kill him, then that guy needs to live, survive through most of the fights. Again, it's just first blood and there were only 2, but he's getting pressured again.
Vote still without Valkyrie's discretion. Actually takes the ultimate from Mike, not too worried about it. Dardes uses Retribution, I believe. How about that Fear No Evil from Sam for Soccer? And no shot Mike lives. Sam
That's impressive.
Drops the Fear No Evil.
That's so good.
Says bye-bye to the rest of the Oni Warriors. But has Sam now put himself in a bad spot? Yes, but enough disengaged to keep a 0 on the board for the Oni Warriors.
Well, if everybody tag teams who's in the worst position eventually, well, you would think maybe either A, you get a kill, or B, you all get out, and it is B. The Dragons, I think, just trade that off very well. Sam, that was a beautiful Fear No Evil, and the exact kind of peel that you need to see. Mike dies there otherwise. But Xingqian, I mean, you've got good move speed, specifically a double dash as well to get you out of there. It's little things like that that really keep the edge in this matchup. And I think it goes to show even more that the Warriors, while they're strong this early on, still need a little bit of time to bake before they're fully ready in what this game is going to bring. Golden Blade's finished off. You've got a Warlock Sash being built up here by Nika, so stacks are starting to get online for those that want it. A Ring of Hecate just now finished there for Vote. And I think that this is where, again, most of the attention needs to be paid. The build for Dardes and Cuvo, because that's going to tell us whether or not they plan on being a primary damage dealer for their squad or if they're going to be kind of riding that line in the middle. And as of right now, I'm seeing a lot of damage dealer up front for them. But watching Vote finishing one ring and then a second ring and then eventually, whenever the third comes online, usually one of those is a hastened ring, so ideally you're getting a good power spike from either number 2 or 3. That's when I think we're going to see a lot more punch from the Warriors.
Yep, agreed. Luckily, the Warriors able to stabilize after first blood of the Jade Dragons. And though there have been some initiation moments, no more kills have dropped, and the gold remains relatively even. Dardes gets Golden Blade here in mid, so, you know, I guess that helps out with some early farm, clears up the speed. Speeds up the clear, there we go, over in mid. So that'll help Dardes maybe stay stable with Pagon, who's gone Transcendence. That'll be a nice power spike once the Chernobog gets there. Now, hard to see. I mean, Dardes on the rotation side of mid, I guess, able to have good impact, drop the Retribution in the same way a Jungle Nemesis might. But really, rotation potential Gore seems to be there for Pagon. Neil, actually a bit low. Yeah, and speaking of rotation power from Pagon, can just walk in towards Neil here, gets the root. That's pretty simple for Sanford Soccer. And now, a couple of times in the last couple of weeks, we've seen supports die for the Obelisk, something that hadn't happened that much this phase. Now happens again against Neil and the Warriors.
I mean, yeah, it's been months. Admittedly, they get the Obelisk, so good for them. They've got a Trebuchet coming up. But a second kill going to the Dragons, again in a game where actually, at this point, the Warriors have just been farming a little bit better than the Dragons overall. That is what's a little more questionable, right? You give up a kill, supports are always the ones that are more worthwhile, quote-unquote, to die when it's any sort of trade like that. But the balancing point now is this Trebuchet versus Neil's life, things like that. And they also invested, you know, you get a few ults, 3 ults there, I believe, from the Dragons. 2 that were using that fight, and then FineOK did use his, and I'm just going to count it
Yep.
overall. And you get a couple back, right? You get the one from Neil, you get the one from Dardes. And so there's a little bit of a race, Pagon's ult being incredibly potent because of rotationary power, but Dardes' ult being incredibly potent because it just makes you die faster if you get hit with it. I think that the trades just overall favor the Dragons there, and unless that Trebuchet gets a lot of work done, it's a heavy investment from the Warriors.
Yep.
But it's been paying off. Again, in gold and in experience, they've been able to trudge at least a little bit ahead. You can see, though, that First Blood still working out a little bit of help there for PandaCat. He's been farming cleanly. Same thing in mid. And it's more the right-hand side of the map for the Warriors that has been doing well.
And so we assumed the solo lane would remain quiet, and it will remain quiet for a little while. Nika, maybe a half-level lead over FineOK, depending on where the waves are, but a unique build for both of these solo laners. Maybe not so much for Nika. We've seen Warlock Staff on the RDO, gives good value early, actually adds a nice bit of extra damage with the Conduit Gem. Conduit Gem start for FineOK as well, but also the Pythag XP score.
Yeah.
And that is unique, not something I'm used to seeing over in the solo lane, but I suppose does help boost up the rest of the team.
Yeah, I think, there's multiple ways to look at it. First off, it's a good, just like stat-wise, it's a good item at base. But then you factor in that lifesteal, and, Sobek has a little bit of anti-heal in his kit, a little bit of self-healing in that kit as well. But when I look at the aura of lifesteal you're going to be giving to your team, I think it's opening things up.
Good initiation on the Vote. Banish missed, but Valkyrie's discretion up. PandaCat uses his ult. Vote uses Valkyrie's discretion. Mike stunned down in mid, just out of execute threshold, and so Kivo Fred won't be able to use the Fatal Strike. Small openings for both of the teams here, but still no kills dropping with all of that's been happening around the map. There is a Fear No Evil, and there is a Nemesis getting aggressive onto Pagon. Dardes has beads, but how about that ultimate just to push Sanford Soccer back? Stun through from Neoma, Earthen Fury, Fatal Strike, it all hits home, and the Oni Warriors will grab their first kill.
Just power of rotations, right? They have enough people coming over. Dardes with a good ult, you get them into a certain range there for Cuvo. It makes things easier, but this is the displacement from the Dragons.
Wow, the pluck back,
Oh
the
my
whirlwind
God.
of Rage and Steel, and the damage from PandaCat is all that needs to be said by the end of that. Cuvo Fred, there's only so much disengage in an Achilles kit.
Now
Simply
Pagon.
just wasn't there. Great banish.
I thought for sure that fight was
Yeah.
going to keep going. That is
Agreed. Vote said no.
a really good play from Vote just to make sure that things, again, get delayed a little longer. Again, I think that what we're seeing here is, one, good investment from the Warriors. I think good rotation. But it falters just slightly in that this is still a little early for a lot of their draft to hit as hard as they want. Hydra's still being built up fully by Dardes, hasn't hit the tier 3. Finished there for Cuvo. And so, they're starting to hit those moments of punching. And those chunks, those autos are going to do after an ability is insane. But, having Freya come into this, again, Neil, Nika aren't necessarily going to do a ton of damage right now. And so I'm watching Vote as he finishes these rings. Now I'm waiting for ring number 3. And at that point, I think we start to see the Warriors really step up and form into what this draft is meant to do. It's just right now you've got to be very careful because the amount of displacement on that team. I mean, we saw Pluck into Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. That doesn't include PandaCat being able to push you. That doesn't include the fear from Fear No Evil. Like, there's a lot that can make you move around in ways that you don't want to if you're the Warriors. And the Dragons are playing that well. Beads are up right now for the 2 carries, Dardes and Vote, so maybe a little less stress on him. Level 12 there for Cuvo. Might be able to get beads for himself as well. But that is maybe my biggest concern for the Warriors is that there's a lot of displacement, a lot of ways to peel. And if you're looking at this comp, they want to get to the center, and that gooey center is a squishy Freya.
And what you don't want to be worried about, though, if you're the Warriors score, is the nice gold lead that they've built up. It's going to shrink down a bit after the Jade Dragons get this Pyromancer, maybe by about half. All right, Dave, not bad. Just by about half. Jade Dragons able to close up that lead. Only Warriors, though, have felt comfortable in the farm department, just have overextended on a couple of instances. Nika, maybe a lot of that over in solo lane, the 1-level lead, as we've talked about, over FineOK, and pretty well underway into a tanky build, Oni Hunters, Breastplate of Valor with the Warlock Staff. Cat is banished, stunned, and now floats to the side. Fatal Strike. will not hit home, but Panicat goes down to Cuvo Fred nonetheless. And Yu Huang is mobile, Gore. Maybe even safe. But only so safe and only so mobile.
Exactly. I think that's the giant scale, the shifting scale that you have to really guard it by. Same thing for Mike here, but they're going to stay in the fight.
Neo drops the Earthen Fury. Fear No Evil separates out the fight, but Neoma able to walk out just fine, but so are the rest of the Jade Dragons. Again, defensive ultimate from Sanford Soccer. Cuvo Fred with the stun on Define. Okay, has to use the beads because the pluck hit home. Blink used before any damage connects, and so Cuvo Fred will survive as well. Lots of fighting, Gore, over very minimal amounts of kills early on in game one.
Well, I mean, at this point, it's a lot of pressure, though, right? Those moments and the gold that you can get from farming without PandaCat over there, at least for Vote right now, I think is worthwhile. Plus, you got the beads from PandaCat, which makes things even easier. And maybe a little bit of focus, you know, Prime Gaming MVP of the week, so you have to make sure that he gets put down a little bit and can't win it twice in a row. But realistically, it's just this Yu Huang. You know he's going to bring good utility. You know that that's going to be where Vote needs some pressure and needs some of that gold. And specifically, you know that Gold Fury's right there and waiting. And so having that mage in this area can very easily rotate in with a hunter to start picking that up. So I think the Dragons have a good draft to potentially go for one in the next couple of minutes.
Mike leaps away as the Oni Warriors put a bit of pressure towards the Jade Dragon support. Solo laners wondering when they get to come and hang out after Fine OK rotates over, but Nika stuck around over in solo lane, and that means 2 levels up now is this RDO. And so while the KDA doesn't look threatening yet for Nika, an experience lead and a bit of safety in the build should have you somewhat worried if you're the rest of the Jade Dragons, because this style of pick, obnoxious to deal with, though Fine OK as the game goes on a Sobek will be as well. Similar builds between Cuvo Fred and Dardes Gore, Golden Blade into Hydras, and then a bit of a branch off from there. But you get the shred, you get the big auto attack damage procs. You wonder how the Jade Dragons are going to play around kind of that double backline assassin-y style of dive.
That's the thing that maybe more surprises me than anything. I've gotten so used to seeing, well, maybe not from Nemesis, considering she's most often in the jungle, but seeing, you know, some slightly hybrid builds where, you know, I know I'm going to jump in deep. Maybe I want something that gives me prots. These are both pretty much just built to kill you quicker. And it's just depending on where they want to go. And again, it gives them a lot more versatility. It's not just Vote that is leading the way for them.
Mike could be in some trouble here. A bit more damage connects, and that means Fatal Strike. That's
So
where
good.
Achilles makes his money, the individual picks. And another one to the Oni Warriors. Cuvo Fred with his 3rd of the game. And Cuvo Fred continues to have a fantastic phase. Been a lot of, you know, the carry-style junglers for Cuvo Fred. Achilles, admittedly, didn't come to my mind first and foremost, but apparently it's going to be a good look for this Oni Warrior squad. Gold Fury, stolen by Sanford Soccer, and that is just simple for the Jade Dragons jungler. I'll drop my ultimate, send all you on a run, and take away the Fury.
No. The Crusher, 18 damage. It was not even like the tick of the ult.
Oh, no.
It was a tick of his Crusher
For
that
18
kills that one.
damage.
Granted, look, they're all feared. It's a lot of control. Man, that one just hurts overall. It's going to go that way, I think, for the Dragons, unless you get a ton of beads or CC immunities popped
Yeah, I'm
by
not
the
burning
Warriors.
beats for that.
And so that's a big team fight ult, massive though in control, because you had highlighted earlier, and I had mentioned it as well, the Warriors have just been farming better overall. I mean, every instance of this game, you got to see the Pyromancer, you can see it where all of a sudden there's a chunk halved for the Dragons, and then it gets drugged right back by the Warriors. And now with the Fury Steal, you might as well be even once again. Just a little behind, but things look better for the Dragons because of this. And I like the way that the Warriors are playing. I think they've done a good job. They've got a lot of potential, specifically around Cuvo, Dardes, Vote. The damage to get someone into execute threshold is very, very potent. But you got to do a little more when you're doing an objective, right? You gotta look for some zoning. You don't really have the secure that we've seen in some of the games of the last set where there was like a Poseidon on the board, things like that. And so you have to be a little more conscious of those when getting aggressive. Otherwise, I mean, at this point, the Warriors could be by and large ahead, a few thousand gold, and feeling a lot more comfortable 20 minutes in than they do.
Yeah, but as we've so often seen, the Gold gap closes up a bit, gets to even. The Oni Warriors pull back ahead. You know, it's starting to trickle back down to that 1,000 gold mark. Experience has remained largely consistently in the lead for the Oni Warriors. 1 level over in solo, 1 to 2 levels in jungle, and then Nilma and Vote both a level ahead of their counterparts. So, you know, again, it's more of a delay style of Fury instead of a complete game turnaround style of Fury from the Jade Dragons. And we're to the late game. We're starting to get to that late game scaling point, Gore. I mean, Vote outside of the one just overwhelming dive that hit the Freya has 3 2/3 rings online. Pagon can't quite box out with the Freya. Oni Warriors have bought their time effectively.
Yeah, I think we're at the point where Vote is officially and will be a threat anytime anyone stands in front of them. If they have any backup at all, it might just be a kill. I'm keeping my eyes right now on Mike, though, and specifically because there's so many blinks on the board. And he just now hit level 12. I want to know what his second relic is going to be. Not uncommon to see on Xing Chen. And might be something that's worth mentioning, because that, again, it's a lot of in-gauge potential. I mean, we were talking about it earlier. For an Artio, again, makes sense. Neil Ma makes sense, although not maybe the most common picked up relics for a Terra and an Artio. I can see why Blink fits in there. And again, it fits really well for Dardes and Cuvo. But it does then mean you're lacking a lot of that extra utility. Again, Beads, Aegis, always talked about as slightly more selfish relics. But, you know, you're foregoing shells, you're foregoing horrifics, anything like that, frenzies, all of this stuff. And so a lot that I'm just curious in watching how they evolve this game and how that style plays with this comp in some of these late game fights.
An effective start to the game for Cuvo Fred, but been slowed down over the last few minutes. And then good individual answers from the Jade Dragons have given the other 3 kills over to the Drags. Really feels like objectively, though, you know, cause it's like map farm for the Oni Warriors. Granted, the Gold Fury would have gone to them as well, but steal from Sanford Soccer. Then the rest of the objectives recently have been going to the Dragons, including the steal. Pyromancer now gets taken by the Dragons. And so around the big objectives, Dragons have just been more effective, luck or otherwise. But around the camps and neutral camps, things like that, that's where the Oni Warriors have really made their money. Small grouping over here on the left side of the map. Cuvo Fred takes him out in a burst damage, stuns out Sanford Soccer. And an ult through from Pagon. And Cuvo Fred able to get that simple kill. Vote must have done most of the damage on the left side of the map. And Cuvo Fred turns around, sends some damage back to the Jade Dragons, makes it a 1-for-1. And now we'll see Nika for the first time.
I mean, this is a good chase down for him. You cannot quite get the CC onto Sam, so I think you have to pull back. But, you know, you're looking at it as maybe just a 1-for-1. But you're seeing a sprint popped, a blink popped from Sam, the sprint from PBM, a kill onto Pagon, and a ton of ults that were just dropped by the Dragons. I mean, Yu Huang, Sam, and Pagon, all 3 of them drop their ult. Nemesis does throw one out in retaliation. You get the beads from Cuvo and his ult as well, but I think by and large that feels like a big win for the Warriors to have a lot of time that they can play around with and get aggressive much like this on the mic. Maybe not a kill, but a really good chance for a fight.
Fine, okay. Finds an opening pluck, but how about the damage out from Vote? Fine, okay, stays alive though through the lurking in the waters. Good poke damage returned into the Oni Warriors, who are now disengaging towards mid, and will be able to do so successfully. Similar fighting all game long. This one the first sort of bigger 5v5, but still no kills drop after a big initiation.
I think it always comes down to the same little concepts, and it's just where are the relics afterward, right? In a fight where there's no kills or a fight where it's 1-for-1, you gotta look at the relics. Dardes missing those beads means that a Fear No Evil that's gonna be coming up soon from Sam could be massive.
Oni Fury taken low. Oni Warriors close by as the Jade Dragons pull off the objective that they had started. You're right, Fear No Evil, gotta be the big one that you're looking out for, but no blink for Sam. I think the Jade Dragons thinking twice. And so both teams will take a deep breath, spread apart, and look for the next big fight here in a couple of minutes. Not much separating these squads in the first 25 minutes of the game.
No, not a lot at all. I mean, it's been small farm for the Warriors, but you had mentioned it earlier, with every single large objective going the way of the Dragons, this game is a lot closer than realistically it should be. I think they've been playing around the Pyro and then the Gold Fury and now even the Oni Fury incredibly well. to make sure that the Warriors can't just take this lead and push it as far as it could go. And that's the thing. A comp like the Warriors, if it hits late game, it's going to be good. If it hits late game with a massive lead, it's going to be even better. So now they've got to figure out where to put that pressure.
Panda Cat has got to float back beneath the tier 1 tower in mid. But again, looks like the individual pick will simply survive, though a blink pluck could make all the difference. Cuvo Fred had to get out of that one. Was able to do so. Now a stun on Define-OK, a root on Define-OK, but not much damage on Define-OK. Lurking in the waters, baited out. That does give you a good glimpse at some of the tankiness, though, Gore, that we have finally reached for Fino. Gets the Oni Hunter's Garb online, Spirit Robe a bit later on. Very, very hard to melt through this health bar.
Very difficult to chase him down as well. I mean, if Lurking in the Waters is available, there's your free CC immunity. You just walk away. Most of the time, you're going to be able to get out pretty cleanly. Sometimes you can even turn around, potentially fight back in. And that's the thing. Survivability on the side of the Dragons is pretty massive. I mean, you know, Xing Chen has multiple ways, at least 2 leaps to jump away, has some roots to maybe self-peel. Hunbats has a leap, technically has a teleport, although that one's going to be a little more useful depending on where you are. Pagon can ult in or out, although sometimes ulting out doesn't work well, as we saw earlier. And then, of course, we just saw what Fino-K and what this Yu Huang can do. And so I have a lot of concerns for the Warriors just in making sure someone who is locked down stays locked down, because I think that's the hardest part with this composition is ensuring that. And that's, again, where, you know, ranged CC from an RDO comes in, where being able to chase people down really well, all these blinks that the Warriors have picked up, you might be able to have a leap that gets you away or a jump or something that banishes you for a moment. They've got ways to close the gaps and ways to get back in. And so I have high expectations for their chase potential. And right now it's just surviving that onslaught, right? Getting in there, we've seen it, good damage every time from the Warriors. And it's just making sure they can survive that good damage. You know, they're not just throwing their lives away to get that out. Making sure the 1-for-1s aren't necessarily happening. They're being able to go in, maybe find 2 before they end up trading a single life.
Once more, we will back away.
Onto the horizon.
Onto the horizon we go. Like ships passing in a night, except the ships have been like battering each other with cannonballs all game long. Just none of them have sank one another. We've just been brawling it out. You're a big Sea of Thieves guy,
yeah.
So that tracks with you.
I also like just went through like a month and a half where I was just like really into pirates.
Yeah, I was getting. You were tagging me in a lot of fun pirate-themed tweets,
yeah.
And I appreciated that. Could this be a separator? The Pyromancer Oni Warriors will not take it away, though Neoma with the walls just shy of coming together for the damage onto the Pyro. Probably smart from the Oni Warriors, not overcommitting onto a Pyro defense. Pagon had used the beads, though. Spanish connected, so did Fear No Evil onto Neoma. Earthen Fury makes it down, but at what cost? The life of Neoma, the life of Dardes. Cuvo Fred answers back with 1, so the Oni Warriors still have a bit of leg in this fight. Vote does not. Fino-K gets rid of the Freya. Fino-K gets the double onto Cuvo Fred, and Nika, the only thing standing between the Dragons and a deicide.
I think the Warriors, by and large, at the initial portion of that fight, have the better damage, but survivability is what the Dragons have. They're able to either peel for themselves, survive just long enough beads, whether it be Aegis, or just in-kit abilities, keep them going. And unfortunately, the Warriors, again, lots of good damage, not a lot of good protection. The minute they're in, they're locked in there.
So Fire Giant pulled down low, Nika close by, but no longer close by. Fire Giant to the Jade Dragons in 28 minutes. A bend but don't break style of play from the Dragons. Look at those gold charts, up and down all game long. And now the biggest lead of the game in general. Jade Dragons find a 2K lead plus some. The tier 1 towers going down.
I always love when the gold graphs look like that because you can see each moment where, you know, whether it's a Pyromancer or a Gold Fury, like every little item or every win that the Dragons have is available there. And that last spike, part of it's that Fire Giant. A majority of it, though, is that team fight, just how sweepingly in favor of them it is. Good kills against Cuvo. I think being able to read Vote very well, because Vote is trying to get the maximum amount of damage out of this ult. And most of the time, it's put them just too far forward that all of a sudden it's easier for someone, you know, if Panda Cat goes down, well then Sam, FineOK, PBM, one of the three or two of the three are going to be surrounding you when you land, and then it's just easy damage because you're Freya. Even with your Banish up, if you have beads, you have Aegis, it's only prolonging what feels like the inevitable. So I feel like Vote, again, has been very easy to handle on the back end of some of the damage. Once that Pulse Irradiate combo's down, getting the kill isn't that bad. Oh my gosh.
Cuvo Fred simply melted by the Jade Dragons. That's an initiation, though 3 ultimates get used. I think the Dragons far enough ahead at this point, strong enough at this point.
Yeah, I don't know that they care.
Yeah, I'll be fine with now 45 seconds of a 5v4. So our ultimates will likely come back up before then.
Yeah, ult economy might not necessarily be in your favor. Relics are by and large in your favor here. So now, not only do you get the numbers advantage, but you can just walk into this Phoenix pretty much willy-nilly.
FineOK has found the backline, but a Retribution has found FineOK. Good ult from Mike! And that connects into damage and CC from the rest of the Dragons. Nika and Nilma, the next 2 to go down, and suddenly the Jade Dragons might be knocking on the door of a game end. 5 members, 4 with FG, against 2 carries of the Oni Warriors. Double banish onto FineOK, and Mike keeps things interesting. Vote into the Valkyrie's discretion, but he'll have to crash down eventually. A gets used, Fear No Evil out yet again, and the Jade Dragons wave bye-bye to game 1.
This was, I think, a good draft from both squads, right? Warriors come in, their game plan is visible, and I think that it's one that really could have taken away if they get that Pyromancer at the beginning, or just the Gold Fury that was stolen away by Sam, get themselves ahead earlier on and start to take some of those fights. But the Dragons did a really good job, like you said, a bend but don't break mentality up at the beginning that is very lenient, right? Cool, you know what, we'll give up this fight, we'll back away, and then we'll come back for the objective and just be there where we need to be. A little bit of lack of zoning from the Warriors for that first Fury keeps the Dragons in it even more, but then it comes down to survivability, the ability to get in, get some damage out, but still survive through the onslaught that was a Freya Pulse, through the onslaught that was the Achilles and the Nemesis. And then unfortunately for the other side, and this is something that fell apart for the Warriors, that 4 protect 1 or potentially I guess 2 protect 3, however they had it split up because of the builds, it just never really got to come to fruition. They were always a little too far separated or maybe not quite on the same page, and it made it a lot easier. Single pick there at the very end just gives a numbers advantage, and from that point forward, it's dominoes for the Dragons.
Doesn't that just feel like a Jade Dragon style of game? Kind of slow burn early on, and then seemingly out of nowhere, a big fight happens and the game is just over. Jade Dragons weather the storm, engage, nearly deicide the Oni Warriors. What they do is kill off the Titan and take game number 1. Game number 2, Goy, you're immature.
You chuckled.
You're immature. I didn't laugh. Game 2 coming up next.
Hey, wait, what did it win?
You win the respect.
You're telling me an alien wore this?
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, that was a good cut.
Messaging him to mute.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course, and I can probably watch a stream on the side.
Content's gonna look good.
Pretty good, pretty good.
Looking for something to make me stay. Round and round forever searching for something that could never get replaced. Don't need you to save me, but I just really need to be saved. I'm just so sick of waiting for any luck to come my way. Yeah. Feel good, be good, stay good, and live good. If I could feel good, I'd live good, I'd die good.
I'm an odd person, I run in dark circles. I would love a long life, cause I love how life's worthless. I'ma paint purple, cause blue's overrated. We all outdated, we all so jaded. We all lost love like love's our savior. It's a dark place when it's all about the paper. Counting pretty cards before they deal you something heinous. I've been steady sitting on my ass. I'm so contemporaneous, in love with my behavior. But really, I could probably try and be something greater. Could working on my favorite. You could tell me something different, but I probably wouldn't listen. No, I probably wouldn't listen. The word, that's the ego. Scared it's taking over. But fuck it if it's fun to run my tongue up on these road fronts. But I know I could lose it all if I'm not careful. I sound scared. Hope you feel that my heart's there though.
Don't need you to save me, but I just really need to be safe. I'm just so sick of waiting for any luck to come my way. Yeah. Feel good, be good, stay good, live good. I could feel good, live good, die good. Lingering inside my headspace, turning minutes into hours into days. I'm thinking about the situations. Wonder if it's ever gonna change. Feel good, be good, stay good, and live good. If I could feel good, I'd live good, I'd die good. Feel good, be good, stay good, and live good. If I could feel good, I'd live good, I'd die good.
I am Hercules.
Cupid!
Lightweight, baby.
Bye!
Victory.
Vomit.
Lightweight, baby.
No! Must keep fighting.
I am the hero you need. Lightweight, baby. Perfect. I am Hercules.
Hello and welcome back to the Smite Pro League, powered by our good friends over at Alienware. If you want to use all the... You good over there, Miff? You good over there, Miff?
I'm chilling, man.
You're chilling?
That's
You're
what we
chilling.
do.
Welcome over there, Mifflin. Welcome back, Mifflin, and welcome back to the Smite Pro League, as I said, powered by our good friends over at Alienware. You want to use the PCs that our players are playing on, the players that we have in the PCs that we have in our studio, the laptops that we use here on the desk. Go over to smitegame.com/Alienware. Use code AWSmite09 to see what kind of great offers that we have in store for you and the Alienware can give over to you. Make sure to follow Alienware on their social medias at Alienware on Instagram and Twitter, and go to AlienwareArena.com to see all the cool things that Alienware has to offer. Thank you so much, Alienware, for coming back in Season 9 of the SPL. Game number 1 between the Jade Dragons and the Oni Warriors is now done. And the Oni Warriors were able to fend off the storm of the early game Mifflin. They made it through the early game of the Jade Dragons, but it just took one team fight for everything to fall apart for the Warriors.
I'm noticing a common theme in the SPL. That one team fight, it seems to be the only thing separating a whole lot of these teams between a win and a loss. But the Oni Warriors, with an unorthodox composition, were able to make their way throughout the laning phase, survive, even at times thriving just by nature of map play, even getting a couple of objectives for themselves. Sure, some steals from the Jade Dragons keep them afloat throughout the early. But once we got to that late game team fight, I really thought, that's it, GG. The Oni Warriors are going to win out with this super weirdo composition. But one misplayed team fight around the Fire Giant. The Jade Dragons make away like bandits immediately afterward, and it was clean from there. But I think the Oni Warriors gain valuable information from game 1, and that's, hey, if you want to be weird, if you got a comp that needs a nemesis, but you got to put her in mid, could still work out, because once they got to the 5-on-5, weren't so bad.
And as you can see, it was in that team fight there around that 25 to 27 minute mark. That was when the Jade Dragons were finally able to get the fight that they had wanted and found a favorable one up against the Oni Warriors. The Warriors spent so much of their resources killing a Yu Huang, and that's similar to when we talked about Charybdis back on launches. When you spend so much trying to kill a god that has so much survivability in their kit, 2 forms of CC immunity, beads, and Aegis buy so much time for Panda Cat, that the Oni Warriors had collapsed and used everything that they had. And oh, by the way, here's Pagon getting to free cast on a Chernobog for the remainder of the fight.
Sanford Soccer as well was allowed to do just about anything that he wanted. 11 affected kills, only 1 death from the jungler of the Jade Dragons. As you said, Pagon allowed to free cast. Panda Cat, maybe not allowed to free cast because he was the target, but if he's the target, you're probably feeling pretty all right about it because of all the survivability that he's got built inherently into his kit. And then this double Guardian frontline between PBM and FinoK, Sobek, and Jingchen, respectively. Just so hard to get past. The initiation, really, was what I think carried the Jade Dragons in that Phoenix Siege towards that 31-minute mark. It was, hey, we've got Plux. We've got Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. That's really all you need.
Yeah, I mean, Mike able to pick up both of the frontliners of the Warriors and throw them into the hands of everybody else on his team. And the instant that Neil and Nika both touched the ground, they were dead at that point. And that's an easy pickings for the Jade Dragons. They take game number 1 and put themselves that much closer to closing out the set with a potential 2-0. But signs of life out of the Oni Warriors, and I think that's the important takeaway there, is that they made it through the early game. They made it through their weakest point. They made it through the Jade Dragons' strongest point of the game. Now they just need to make it through that end game and actually have that team fight to kind of go through, and maybe drafting a little bit more of an orthodox style, maybe getting a traditional mage or a second long-range damage dealer out there could do them wonders in game 2.
Yeah, mages are just so good on base defense that I think when you essentially forego an orthodox mage, you're saying, hey, we are playing to win, and that's it. The second we're on the back foot, it is a severe disadvantage. You need that AoE damage. You need that long-range artillery to keep minion waves out and sustain through the poke war that is already favoring the team on Siege, because for the most part, they've got Fire Giant to regenerate them. So the Oni Warriors, once they had lost out on that FG, really lost out in a lot of value of their composition. But again, it worked out throughout the early. They did get to that late game team fight, and it was thin margins that the Jade Dragons were able to win out by. So I don't think the Oni Warriors need to completely forego the strategies they had developed coming into today. If they really want to keep with the unorthodox style, I think they showed me enough in game 1 that it's got my vote of confidence.
As far as the bans are concerned, Jade Dragons won't change up any of theirs. It'll still be the Dodgy, Osiris, and AMC banned away by the Order side team. Oni Warriors, on the other hand, will make an immediate adjustment. The Emoja, same as game number 1, that gets banned away. But now adding Xing Chen into the mix. So a little tired of what PBM was able to do on that god, the constant initiations he was able to find, the multi-man ultimates that Mike was hitting in those late game team fights. Oni Warriors want nothing to do with that.
No, and now they'll have to deal with Mike playing maybe one of his other aggressive selections, right? It feels like Xing Chen as a ban is just, hey, please, it didn't go great for us. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel is so strong against our our weirdo draft. Our Nemesis mid wasn't allowed to stand close to anybody because of this massive AoE CC. So we'll go ahead and deal with that. Chernobog rounds out the bans for the Oni Warriors, and now the Jade Dragons in first pick position yet again have got choice of the field. Was Chernobog in that first slot in game 1, but haven't been taken away now. They'll have to dig a little bit deeper. We know Panicat likes the Yu Huang into Freya matchup, but we similarly know that Panicat just likes the Freya up against the Solar Scarabs. They had taken it first overall, I believe, 2 of their matches, so could be a Freya selection here. Yu Huang hovered. I suppose if you're worried about Vote going back towards it, the Freya that is, might as well just get your counter matchup off rip.
Yu Huang will be locked in first for the Jade Dragons, and now a lot on the table for the Oni Warriors to grab. They can go back to the Artio that was doing well for Nika, and they will indeed. That one gets locked in right away. Pick of the litter for jungle. I mean, Nemesis is still open if they want to actually get that one for Cuvo this time. They even have Mercury available if the Oni Warriors want to grab that one, though we've been seeing mixed success as far as Mercury is concerned in the SPL, sitting, I think, actually a little bit under that 50% mark right now.
Despite the best efforts of Sanford Soccer, I think pretty winning on the Mercury for the Jade Dragons, so we could still see it locked in if they so choose. The Morgan, the second overall selection for the Oni Warriors. Some good transformation targets already. Artio in the late game nearly unkillable, but you better believe there's going to be a couple more throughout. Worth noting that you really don't want to transform into Artio early game. Generally, the Morgan maxes out her second ability. So like a max triple field or a max stun. Probably not the best usage of your time, but everybody's maxed out at around level 20. And then you could just become another unkillable initiator that also has some in-combat healing for your team. The Jade Dragons thinking hard about their second phase of picks. Maybe you want to go ahead and select a soul laner here. That could be a soul laner, could be a jungler, could be a support. Feels like it's been a little while since we've seen Ymir consistently. Genetics comes to mind as one of the premier Ymir players in the league. And he plays support, so I'll hedge my bets there.
Potentially so. Now, of the last 7 games that Mike has played, 1 was a Baron, 1 was a Xing Chen. The other 5 were Fafnir. So we're seeing a little bit of diversity now, at least out of PVM is concerned, as far as that god pool goes. Though, again, we can still have to wait to see exactly whether Ymir does get locked in. Though, if history is any indication of the performance of this god in the Pro League, support is probably the safest place to put your bets there. Now, the Oni Warriors, with their mid and their solo locked in, have a lot that they can grab. Ymir, one of the biggest struggles that he has is his immobility. Nemesis could be a nice pick if they want to grab their jungle, but who cares about grabbing the jungle? I'll just go ahead and stop talking about jungle at this point because Jingwei is available, and the Oni Warriors will grab that one for Vote.
Good deal of safety, CC immunity the ultimate, so if it is Ymir in the support role, you don't have to worry so much about the wall into freeze, as long as that ultimate's still up. If it's down, you're pretty concerned. I am surprised that the Oni Warriors don't even consider going towards the Khepri. It would play very well against this essentially single target DPS composition between Ul and Yu Huang. It's a pick that has had major success so far in the SPL. Now the Jade Dragons have the opportunity to go ahead and ban that out if they so choose, or they could start targeting out a couple of these periphery picks. Achilles taken off the table. They don't want to deal with it. And it seems like Dardes is confused. My man threw the hand up.
He's like, wait, an Achilles? Man, that seems a little bit out there. Now, granted, over towards Cuvo did have all of the kills that his team got in that previous game, all
Maybe
5
deserves
of them.
the ban,
So
right?
maybe take the ban that way. End up, I think, 5-4 was his final slash line as far as the KD was concerned. But Jade Dragons will not want to deal with that execute. Meanwhile, it'll be a Sobek ban by the Oni Warriors, again recognizing the frontline pressure that the Jade Dragons have put between the Whirlwinds of Rage Steels of the Xing Chen and the Plucks that were coming from Final K on the Sobek. The Oni Warriors do not want to deal with that extra form of CC. And maybe one more potential target ban over towards solo could go the way. We've been seeing a little bit less of the Warriors over there, though King Arthur's still notably something that Final K does like to go back towards in that lane.
And with the Guardians, or the primary suspect Guardian Soul Laners banned out now, Cthulhu from the Oni Warriors, I think you might be right in bringing up the King Arthur. I'd also briefly assumed we might see a Robin, but the Jade Dragons target that one out immediately. Been a severe lack of Robin over the last set or so.
True.
That mitigation build still exists, and it is still incredibly strong, but it is slow rolling. So the Jade Dragons, a team that like to bring the pressure early, might stray away from that style of play.
And we also can't dismiss the fact that Robin still could go over into the jungle, and something that Cuvo Fred does like to play. The Oni Warriors will pick up their Guardian now. It will be Ganesh locked in for Neil Ma. So we've got the dual lane now of the Oni Warriors. It's just going to come down to what Cubo wants. And typically when it comes to an Oni Warriors draft, Cubo is not often the last pick for his team. He's usually one of those top 2 or even top 3 picks.
And there's some of Cubo's favorite selections still out there. You could pick up the Nemesis for the jungle this time around. Da Ji available, has decent matchup into the Ul at least. Doesn't really ever work up against Yu Huang. Ymir to a certain extent with the Ice Shards should be able to avoid the pull-in, but if you're forcing at least an ultimate or at least putting pressure onto the Ul, I think Pao Lao has got enough value to merit a pick in of that in itself. But the Jade Dragons have got choice first. I just gotta assume you're looking potentially towards another Hunbat selection. Pretty decent into the Morrigan, pretty great performance as well. Nemesis Hover could be taking note. Hey, we don't want the Oni Warriors or Cubo Fred getting his or one of his most comfortable picks.
Yeah, definitely one of his most top played gods as well. Cullen, but will not be Nemesis, will instead be Susano. Now, in the past, we would speculate if this one's going over to Pagon or not, but considering Yu Huang and Ul are already locked in, gotta imagine the Susano is finally going to be going back to his rightful home in the jungle for Sam for Soccer. And that leaves Fenrir open for the Oni Warriors. So we've now hit a point, Mifflin, where Mercury has potentially fallen by the wayside, as no teams have even looked at him and gets his way all the way past, but maybe some of the struggles of going up against Ymir potentially have dissuaded the Oni Warriors from that pick. So now that we have a more traditional style of composition out of the Oni Warriors, how do you feel about their chances up against the Jade Dragons and their composition they've drafted?
I like this Oni Warriors draft a fair bit. Artio should be able to hold her own in lane, should get pretty decent pressure around the Totemaku as well. Conduit Gem just really has boosted these Guardian Solos' ability to clear out, so generally it used to be, hey, there's a Warrior versus a Guardian matchup, the Warrior's going to control Totemaku. I don't think it's as simple as it once was. You've got decent objective burn potential thanks to this Ganesh. Dharmic Pillars on its own, just such a high DPS ability, in conjunction with Jing Wei, who's likely going towards crit, should be able to make short work of these objectives. I think the 5-on-5 engagement might be a bit more equalized or even favors the Jade Dragons at points. The Susano ultimate is going to be so disruptive for almost the entirety of the Oni Warriors draft. Sure, Jing Wei can dash out of the knockup, but besides that, pretty easy targets for the Susano to line up. Ul should bring pressure early on. Where he's going to bring that pressure, TBD, we never know, between Pagon and Pandacat, where either one of these two selections is going to go. But because Yu Huang is locked in, and we don't have a Freya on the other side, maybe we get the standard mage and mid with the ADC and the duo.
Yeah, potentially Pagon goes to something more traditional. Typically when we do see him go to the mages is Thoth more often than not, but gotta imagine that Yu Huang is right up his wheelhouse along with the rest of the mid laners in the SPL. So when you're maybe now looking at this solo lane matchup, Kakulin versus Artio, probably not a whole lot of action to be had over there, but do you think that there's maybe some potential pressure that the Susano could put over on the Oni Warriors, maybe try and keep Nika or keep Cubo Fred down?
Decent matchup into the Morrigan. If I'm Susano, I'm loving that. Yeah, you even go into the stealth, but he's got such large abilities, the first and second, that you could, if you're already close range, which he does, knock her out of it pretty easily, chase down with the ultimate. So I could see the Susano putting a lot of pressure towards the center of the map. Besides that, I know Jing Wei is pretty survivable, but Susano is uniquely qualified and uniquely good at chasing down just about anybody, Yanis is included. Why not stick to a Jing Wei?
We'll have to see exactly where the Susano decides to put his pressure. Where's Sam? We'll get to go with the Jade Dragons. Can the Jade Dragons 2-0 the Oni Warriors, or are we going to get some fight back out of the Warriors and take us to Game 3? Before we get to there, we got to get through Game 2.
That's right. The Oni Warriors draft themselves a solid composition as far as bounce back potential goes. But the Jade Dragons bring us some high octane, action-packed potential for Game 2. Susano for Sam, Uller for Pagon, Pandacat back on the Yu Huang. All three of these picks for the Jade Dragons feel like they've got playmaking, carry potential for the Dragons in Game 2.
A lot of good damage behind him. I mean, it is going to be a little, maybe less standard than what we've seen, but not that less standard, right? I mean, when you look at their team fight, it's the exact same as what you would see out of a normal composition. It's just the early game where they're in the lane phase that things are going to be a little different. But I've seen enough Pagon on this Uller that I am sold on it. I do not need to be convinced that this is going to be successful. On the other side, though, I think they've got some really good fight back. The only downside I have, and this is just a downside I have with Fenrir in general, not necessarily Cubo playing it, is that you have to commit pretty heavily to going in.
Yep.
I think the last time we saw, or at least I know yesterday in the SEC, there was at one point, I want to say in the last couple of weeks as well. The problem is you end up having to use some of your stuff as disengage. That's great jukes, by the way, from Cuvo.
Yep.
My God, that was insane for him to just be able to dodge out as much as he did. But, you know, we'll see someone leap in, get a stun, go for a brutalize, immediately have to cancel and use their ult to get away.
Pagon hits the stun, gets the beads off of Dardes. Chaotic in the first couple of levels there. Pagon jumps up and over. Dardes and Cuvo Fred was on the opposite side of the lane from his own tower. And everyone ends up staying alive there. Cuvo Fred just a bit behind, reach level 2 just now on one of those back camps. I agree though, playmaking at an all-time high as far as potential goes. Now I look at the Oni Warriors comp Gore. Seems a bit more straightforward.
Yeah.
Team comp, team fighting. I do wonder though, what Dardes ends up thinking with Morgan transformations throughout this game, and I'll let you think about it a bit. It's fine, okay, we'll take some damage and a root. The tower provides safety for the Cuchulainn. Because oftentimes you go into a game and there's one transformation, that's it, right? Whether it's Cthulhu, Nike in the past, things like that. I guess there's a lot of okay options throughout this game.
Yeah.
And maybe more team fight dependent for Dardes.
Yeah, I think that there's, honestly, like the first one that stands out to me the most is probably the Cuchulainn in general. You might see why here, just because of how well he can just disengage. I think the control that a Cuchulainn can bring, like a good 4-man knockup, we see him a few times. I think there's a lot of openings for this as a transformation over into FineOK. But at the same time, you can also just become Artio Part 2. You can become Fenrir Part 2. You know, you're looking at people who burn beads, not really the best on the side of the Warriors, so having a Fenrir and then a second Fenrir to go in after someone on the 4 pairs of beads that the Dragons has burned them could give you those opportunities. Again, I think it depends on how well Cuvo's able to maintain this god early on and how much it pops off. Otherwise, FineOK teamfight-wise, Artio teamfight-wise, both incredibly potent. I mean, hell, even a Ymir, even though he's maybe not my first option, isn't the end of the world, because you get good freezes, you know, a good wall, to the point where now I'm trying to think back of the last time I might have seen a Dardes piloted Ymir, which, if at all, like, at least in a competitive setting, maybe never, or maybe way
must have been a Morgan.
Way back when.
If it ever happened, it was a Morgan pick. I don't think he ever picked.
If I remember, Dardes used to play support, like in the way before. So there's got to be a Ymir game somewhere.
Surely, right?
But that's like even before I'm casting Challenger Circuit prior to getting hired here. Like, that's years and years and years ago.
Before anything I would remember.
I was a different human.
Well, I'm excited, Gore, to peek into the mind of Dardes a bit throughout this game.
Yeah.
Because in all likelihood, there could be a very obvious transformation that we're just missing, and Dardes goes to it every single time.
And we just go, oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
duh.
right. That makes sense. So we'll see. You know, second Susano in some moments could be exciting. That's a nice wall. Freeze, I believe, silenced, canceled, whatever it was, didn't connect onto Vodor Nilma. And Ganesh continues to be annoying in all the right ways. Just enough utility and different abilities to make an impact over in the duo lane. Sanford Soccer can dash into Nika and gets the pull back. But yet again, I think we've reached the point here in solo. It's going to take a lot more than just the jungler walking in to really end up getting a kill.
Yeah, the 9-5 changes alone make it difficult for you to burn through a Guardian or even a Warrior at this point of the game. Panda Cat, though, he's a mage. He's a little squishier. Luckily, still able to get away. I think that the investment on the right-hand lane, really from both sides, has been interesting to me to see. Just because I don't know that you're going to get a big kill without the assistance of the tower. And that's going to be close to impossible to get.
Did see a bit of that last set, the solo lane priority. Purple buff stolen away by Nilma and Vote. Blue buff confirmed by the Jade Dragons just a moment ago in Sanford Soccer. So one confirmed, one stolen away. FineOK ends up going into Runic Shield early on in the build on the Cuchulainn here. I mean, Conduit Gem for Artio in the lane. Again, kill pressure is still pretty low. But FineOK synergizes pretty well with that item anyway, it feels like. And so not a bad start just to keep Kokon in lane.
Yeah, I mean, this is, again, the only thing that makes me think that we're probably going to be in for the long haul solo lane, right? I don't expect either of them to find solo kills over each other. I always feel like whenever I say that, we're about to see one happen. I'm glad we're watching the lane so it doesn't just happen like off to the side. It feels like it's going to be very difficult for like solo kills to happen. Ganks are going to have to be very well targeted, especially if this ends up being anything like a breastplate. Already with physical protections, Nika's feeling really solid because that means that Sam and FineOK are going to be lacking a little bit. At least right now, Cuvo can rotate over and still hit FineOK pretty hard. And so there's some openings for the Warriors, maybe on the right-hand side, but not a ton. And it's also the only one on the Dragons that doesn't have beads, so that might just be Cuvo's best matchup right now to try and get aggressive on, unless they want to do something wild, because they don't have a lot of beads burners on this squad to help out Cuvo. So this is just maybe the easier grab.
Yeah, getting situational beads burning, it feels like. Ragnarok, yes. Outside of that, how can you capitalize? Nika has some moments where you can provide lockdown, shred some beads.
But nothing, yeah, like nothing crazy hard CC. Dardes has a stun, but you got to get like real up close and personal to make it happen.
It's a great freeze, or silence rather, from Neomod to avoid the freeze. Blue buff confirmed by the Jade Dragons. Polar Bear Mike sends a freeze towards Nika. FineOK double knockup, almost avoided by the double pull from Sanford Soccer, and individually the only Warriors look like they're going to be able to escape. Big Typhoon from Sanford Soccer, but FineOK didn't get the memo. He sticks around. In goes Fino. Out goes Cuvo Fred. This is going to be big from Mike and the Jade Dragons. 2 kills already dropped. Nika could make a third around the wall we fight, and the Oni Warriors empty-handed, and the Jade Dragons' pockets are full.
We'll say, I admire Dardes. He goes for it, man. He transforms into the Fenrir. He leaps in. He grabs Pagon. He runs back. It almost to the point where that freeze initially from the PBM, silenced out. The second one, stunned out. If that goes through, I actually think the Warriors are maybe in a better spot, because what happens is they end up chasing a little further, and maybe that one freeze, that one wall isn't a big turnaround, but it separates. All of a sudden, you've got, you know, Neil and I believe Nika on one side, Cuvo and Dardes on another. And so the Dragons are able to surge forward. They've got this split fight going in their favor. Good amounts of damage already online. And they've got just better team fight ultimates. I mean, Dharmic Pillars is going to be a big turnaround for you, but other than that, Cuvo Fred, single target. Dardes, depends on who he turns into, and he turns into a Fenrir, which is single target. And so you get this massive Typhoon, you've got FineOK, and you've got Mike, who are all going to be able to throw those out. And Ymir's ult usually isn't even that massive, but the slows that are being applied by that Frostbite passive, plus the presence from everybody else, just made it very smooth. I mean, hot knife through butter to pick up the Warriors as they tried to retreat.
That'll give the Jade Dragons a nice 1,000 gold lead, but as we saw in Game 1, that level of lead didn't really end up meaning much until a bit later on in the game. But it is a very pretty looking fight, and does give a good bit of momentum over to Sanford Soccer in the jungle, who ends up picking up a couple of those kills. And maybe gives you a mindset of how this Dragons team is going to be able to fight. FineOK has a massive fight, as for once the blue buff ends up getting stolen by Nika. FineOK not happy about it though. Nika gets pulled back through. Cuvo Fred is here. Remember, FineOK doesn't have beads. There won't end up being a Ragnarok from Cuvo Fred, and so Nika gets the blue buff steal. That's about it. And how fun is that for Mike? Just gets his freezes silenced out over and over again.
I mean, it is one of the most frustrating things in the world as someone who loves playing Ganesh and hates playing against Ganesh. It is so irritating when you go to hit what feels like it's gonna maybe be a massive play, big freeze on a Ymir, and then you click and it doesn't happen, and then you wait a little bit because Ohm lasts forever, it feels like, in those moments, and then you keep spamming it, and then of course by the time you finally get to the point where you can click it, the entire opportunity has disappeared from you.
Dharmic Pillars used by Neil. That's kept Mike right where he is. There's a Ragnarok, first of the game from Cuvo Fred. It's made Pagon uncomfortable. He'll go up, down. And Dardes is transformed into Susano. Great opportunity for the Oni Warriors. Massive knockup from FineOK. But a knockup that'll go searching for some follow-up, because the Oni Warriors have gotten 2 kills, could be a third. Polar Bear Mike run down, and Cuvo Fred ties up the kills.
I mean, you swing 3 one way, 3 the other. Cuvo might be low, but yeah, I don't know that FineOK is going to be able to close that gap fast enough. That's a good turnaround fight. And I think the biggest difference, again, is even though Cuvo goes in, Cuvo gets burned a lot, but is able to get a lot done with his kit and still escape. And this time around, we get to see the Susanoo as opposed to transforming into the Fenrir. I think having that wide, the capability to pull people in, the capability to chase someone down, but more specifically, the ult that Sam gives, or I guess in this case that Dardes would give to his team by stealing Sam's, is much bigger for the team. And having that big knock-up, big amount of damage, it's a good amount that I expect to see a little more often. I think between the Susanoo and the Kukulkan, those are the transformations I'd expect to see a little more often than not. And I think that they both can provide a lot for the team. You have to invest a lot of your Dardes, but look, 3 kills there, you're feeling more than fine with that kind of investment, especially with the way the initial fight goes, right? The 3-0 for the Dragons just a couple minutes ago. You need something to go in your way, and being able to pull back 3, and more importantly, have it be the jungler in the mid plus the support as opposed to like solo mid and support, I think makes it a little more worthwhile for the Warriors.
Panda and Poe just wondering what's going on this game. They're just hanging out over in duo lane. Yeah, so you got a Jingwei farming up. You got Panda Cat stacking up Warlock staff over on left.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen the Devourer's Gauntlets, right? Like, not too uncommon to see the Warlock staff, although maybe not as common lately as it has been on certain mages, like Yu Huang. Doesn't necessarily surprise me to see him build it, but also doesn't necessarily mean or stay as the exact thing I would expect. And, you know, Evolved Devo's Gauntlet's still going to be good here, but it has been delayed a little bit. I believe, recently, I think got a little boost back to the numbers that were nerfed down earlier in a couple of patches ago. So at least stabilizing a little bit, but good lifesteal. Honestly, I like this build so far from Pope because it's going to let him survive really well. He's going to hold his own in lane, no problem. You're Jingwei already, so survival is like just there for you. Yeah, it already exists pretty easily. But now with the Wind Demon online, it's a good power spike. You get some crits early on. If you're going for a boxing match just in lane up against someone like a Yu Huang, those crits are going to give you an edge. But even in general, I think as you rotate over, the next couple of items, to me, this either means you're going to go heavy-handed in crit, or pretty much the virtual opposite, right? That it's going to be the only crit item you get. Either way, it gives you a lot of leniency in your build, and it's a really good like fulcrum to figure out how you're going to lean into the rest of the game.
Between Sam, Pagon, and Panda Cat, 3 squishy targets, so crit would chunk. But heavy-handed into crit means that FineOK and PBM can itemize against that, and then the tanks are taking much less damage if they grab themselves the Spectral Armor. I know Trelly likes this style of build where you get the lifesteal, get some power with the upgrade, all of that early. Then you're able to get your crit online early, which is what you want on the Jingwei. So a good pace to the build.
Yeah.
For Vote. See if he'll be able to make use of that at any point soon, though at level 14, feels like we still got a little while before the Hunters really rotate in and have an impact outside of maybe a Gold Fury fight. Some power spikes get hit elsewhere, though. Heart Seeker for Sam for Soccer, Hydras for Pagon. It's a little added burst damage from the 1-2 punch of the Dragon's jungle, plus mid laner. Of course, Dardes can replicate some of that. Evo Fred has got some damage. FineOK has beads. And Ragnarok for beads. That's a tale as old as time. And one that oftentimes the junglers will take.
Yeah, timer-wise, Cuvo, that's going to give him an opening over there in solo if he so pleases. Same thing for Dardes. You know, I didn't like it at first, and admittedly the way it played out, it didn't work out the way they wanted to. But I still think that if you do decide to transform into someone like the Fenrir, and Cuvo happens to have burned Pagon's beads, then that's going to give you openings that otherwise just wouldn't exist. Last time around, it ended up causing Dardes to be very deep, too long, and it's a very easy kill pickup for the Dragons. But in a lot of circumstances, there's at least some openings. So I'm going to keep my eyes on Dardes as well. Very Assassin-y style play style for Morgan anyway. And so it's not too outlandish to ask for something that swaps like that. That being said, I also again, I just really love the Cullen. You had highlighted it earlier. I mean, might be the easiest call that they've ever made. 2 Spectrals already online
nice.
for FinoK and PBM.
Yeah.
And that's just the kind of the deal. I mean, Dardes, you're not going to have any crit coming from
Didn't get
mid.
speed.
You're not going to have any crit coming from Fenrir. It's all on Vote. But they know where their threat is going to be. 2 of those have to commit pretty heavily to going in.
Yep.
And Vote does not. So if you can limit some of those crits, make sure that you're surviving through these fights, that's going to give you the CC necessary to fight back.
Yep. So, good counter itemization from the Jade Dragons, but also something where, again, if Vote is able to go toe-to-toe with Sam, Pagon, Panda, that's where these crits will really, really hit home. Not a Warlock staff start this time for Nika, instead right into tankiness, realizing that Fino plus Sam equals maybe needing a Breastplate of Valor. First item for Nika, and then of course you want Onis. You're able to roll into that Sovereignty for FinoK on the flip side, sensing similar threat of physical damage as far as jungle and solo laner end up rolling through. So at 16 minutes, not much separating these squads, 400 or so gold.
Yeah.
And outside of the Morgan selling everything, buying it back, you see nothing in the gold draft there, Goran. Got one basically stable line. And not unlike game 1. As a matter of fact, almost the exact same as game number 1, except the Oni Warriors were able to pull the slightest of leads. But a couple of kills here and there. Seems like that the first round of neutral objectives that we get comfortable for the Gold Fury and the Pyromancer, ultimately will make the big difference here if they don't go down quietly and you start to see some fighting. There's a bit of presence from the Oni Warriors on left. Panda Cat, of course, safe and has beads and can float away. This is maybe one of the most boring, least gank potentially duo lanes we've got.
A lot of damage on the If that ult connects from Panda Cat, that's probably just a kill outright. So good presence, I think, from the mage in the duo lane. But like you said, unfortunately, it doesn't really do anything. Even if Vote gets pulled in, maybe a beat, Aegis, ult, yeah, you can just kind of dash away and potentially save your life. Admittedly, having to use a lot more than you did. But I'm interested maybe more in this. FinoK's in trouble.
How much trouble? Because
That's the question.
I don't see that health bar shrinking down that much. He is salmon leaves used everything. And double knockup. Gotta get a kill here, my god! It took 4 members of the Oni Warriors to kill off FinoK. Sanford Soccer with a massive Typhoon, and should get taken down as well. That is Sam attempting to save his solo laner's life. Shouldn't have done so, and the Oni Warriors, I'll say one of those was simple. The other one took a bit of damage to get done.
The chase down onto FinoK, like there was a certain point, and I want to say it's about the middle of the solo lane, which maybe hold that thought. Panda Cat they get knocked up. The control's good. There's enough damage. They're going to lock him down. Neil's just going to take a little bit of poke back. And that's the kind of kill you need. I mean, pulling more in your favor, that's great for the Warriors to be able to pick that one up as well. But about halfway through the lane on solo side was when you have to decide how hard are we committing to this. And at that point, Dharmic Pillars got dropped. They were going in. They wanted that kill. It just helps that Sam came over and they were able to pick up Panda Cat. I think even, worthwhile otherwise. Getting Panda Cat, killing him off, opens up this left-hand side. And I was going to talk about Sam and specifically Ymir being the two biggest quote-unquote secure gods on the game and on the map. But they don't have much they can do. One was dead. The other one, you're not going to catch Mike walking up to the rest of the Warriors hanging out of the Fury. And so I think that's a good play from the Warriors. And a lot of what we saw there in game number 1, but this time actually working out for them in terms of getting the objective.
Pyromancer pulled by the Jade Dragons and confirmed by the Jade Dragons. Nika trying to slow down the retreat. But the Jade Dragons at least able to get something as far as objectives go. Find themselves a couple thousand gold behind. And over 5,000 experience. 1 level in solo for the Onis. 2 levels make it. Jungle, mid, support. All of them a level or 2 ahead. As long as you're not fighting around Vote, or fighting around Panda Cat rather, who's equal to Vote. Oni Warriors feel good about where their fight lands on the map. Get some good neutral gold as well. The Jade Dragons getting dangerously close score to the type of territory where you need to figure out where you're going to draw the line. You get the Pyromancer, yes, but you give over the Gold Fury after a bad fight. Tier 1 tower quietly to Vote. You cannot bleed out too much more gold here. The Oni Warriors are a good enough team to push this style of bleed.
Yeah, this is a team that, especially with the way that we were playing last game, outside of the big objectives in game one, they were winning the farm battle. And so this is a moment where they finally have a lot more power going into their pockets. You've got the chin size finish there for Vote. You're getting a little more prots online here for Cuvo soon enough. Dardes is going to be hitting harder, and Dardes is 4-1. I mean, Dardes has been a huge aspect of this team, and I'm keeping my eye on the Morgan for that exact reason.
Yep.
And I think a lot of opportunities, they might be able to continue chasing Mike down or turn on Finocade.
Been a lot of Susano transformations. Could be another one here. But again, Finocade so tanky, right? Finocade's buying time, still setting up front. Oni Warrior's not dealing that much damage to Fino. I mean, he's half health, but it took a full 5-man concerted effort. But Nika have you overextended. Dharmic Pillar's down, but walked over the wall from Polar Bear Mike. Simply delays the initiation from the Oni Warriors. Shards of Ice, no good. And another 2 kills for the Oni Warriors. They're just scrapping in the jungle. And the Jade Dragons just have not been able to compete.
I mean, and it's good chase down, right? I think that the team fight holds, again, for the Dragons maybe mean a lot more, but they're fighting in these narrow corridors where a lot are going to hit for the Warriors in terms of abilities. Vote has had some stellar rotations, and you're seeing the real difference. I mean, those crits ringing true, hitting a lot harder than what you're getting out of Pagon. PandaCat, while able to get a lot of damage out there, has not been able to match. Actually, has surpassed. I mean, Jingwei admittedly hasn't done a ton. Look, next to the bottom, just barely above the Amir, slightly below the Ganesh. But it does feel like it's been impactful. A lot of it, though, has just been Dardes. It's an easy blanket statement to make. You've got good CC coming from the RDO. That on itself is going to be very nice. Good damage, good lockdown from a Fenrir. But Dardes is getting in there. He's getting good damage in the base Morgan kit, but then good transformations for lockdown. And then comes right back into it to continue finding those kills. So I think that we've gotten to see a lot from Dardes that has really escalated the fights for the Warriors to the point where the Dragons, I mean, what is that? That's 2 in a row where it's been a 3-0 sweep that the Warriors have picked up, and the Dragons haven't had any sort of response.
They sure haven't. It's not often that the Dragons are in that style of game. And still a few tier 2 towers to go down on this Fire Giant buff. I'm hard-pressed to see a world where the Jade Dragons said you got to choose where you put up your defense. And over nothing in particular was the answer from the Dragons, and that fight didn't go their way. I'm not sure you can put up a defense under anything less than a Phoenix at this point. Tier 2s should go down pretty quietly to the Oni Warriors. Because really, I guess if you're the Dragon score, you're just hoping to scale at this point. You know, you hope to get to level 20. Almost fully 5th slotted for everyone outside of Polar Bear Mike. So over the next 10 or so minutes, the Dragons can equalize golden experience, but it's going to be a long 10 minutes. That's another 2 Fire Giants for the Oni Warriors if we get there.
Yeah, a lot of this is holding out and specifically looking at Phoenix defenses, which again, I think you have a good mage. Yu Huang should be able to help out a lot of that. Your abilities might not be the biggest abilities in the world, but you know, one misstep from the Warriors, an ult from PandaCat pulls them into the Phoenix, all of a sudden you're frozen dead, things like that. And so I think that the Dragons have some good defenses available to them. The Warriors have just been playing a little bit better. They have to be careful approaching the Phoenix line. Ymir as well, I think really good under the Phoenix. You've got a Trebuchet on your side, a Fire Giant, and the numbers advantage, and the gold advantage. And so you can really force this to happen if you can catch someone out. Whether it's a small pull, potentially a chase, or a dive in from the Warriors. Beads are up for everybody on the Dragons, so it's not like Evo's going to have an easy time either. I just think the opportunity's there. Or alternatively, you just meet this stalemate and the Trebuchet does all the work for you. It's going to take a while, but give it 30 seconds and soon enough that Phoenix will be only a couple of hits away.
That's every Smite fan's dream. Let the Trebuchet knock down the Phoenix while we watch it happen. A couple more. No, and PandaCat has the range damage. Actually, most of that damage is from the Trebuchet just kind of wailing away on the Phoenix. Got a 1v1 in mid, but it's Cuvo against Finocade. Sanford Soccer, of course, can flex back and forth. Geometry tells us that it's a faster route for Sam to go back and forth between the Phoenixes than it is for Cuvo Fred. Good wall for Mike. That delays out the initiation. Fantastic pull in from PandaCat. And look at the health bars melt. The Oni Warriors low on the backside of this fight. Nika's not finished off the kill. Double Susano ults, but only one of them results in a kill. And it's the Jade Dragons under the left side Phoenix that have killed off Dardes. Nika now pulled into the Lion's Den. Double stun, followed by a knockup. And this fight is all Panda Cat setting up the damage and FidoK knocking it down.
And you gotta be careful with that approach. That being said, with your spread out team fight, no matter how you engage there, Panda's gonna pull somebody. It's just who
like 3 guys.
and how many he's gonna get. That one ends up going large, and you get rid of 2 important fire giants. I mean, you burn this power play down, and while they got a lot of gold in the form of towers, you save a Phoenix, and you put yourselves maybe not in a better position gold-wise, but at least in a spot where you know you can team fight. That being said, look at the investments. Vote still has his ult. Neil, Dart McPillar's about to be up. And, well, Cuvo, Dartes, they're about halfway through. But Relic's on the side of the Warriors. You've got a missing Aegis, a missing Shell, and a missing Blink. That's about it. You've got Beads down for Pagon, Sprint down, but a lot of ults that are still on cooldown. Mike's going to get his back, but that one's a little negligible. Panda Cat has his, which feels great around the Phoenixes. Could feel good around the Fire Giant, depending on how they get engaged. But FidoK and Sam are the ones you really want to have that. Should be back, or at least close to back, by the time the Fire Giant comes around. But that's where the pressure is going to be. That's a huge fight, huge amount of damage for Panda Cat. Obnoxious that he's got 16,000 and is 0, 1, and 2, so you know that the kills, unfortunately, maybe aren't going his way. But a good amount of poke in there. And I think that we're going to see something that at least can hold presence around this next FG fight. The Warriors aren't necessarily running away with it as easily as they could.
No. Still in a good spot, though. Would have loved to have gotten that left side Phoenix, so map state-wise would have felt more comfortable. Wow, and Friend takes damage. So an interesting call from the Dragons here. Maybe the right call, not feeling overly confident after a Phoenix defense goes correctly. And the call is simply give the regular Fire Giant over to the Oni Warriors. We're not going to fight this one out. Maybe test our hand again at a Fire Giant Phoenix defense. So, ends up not being all that dramatic at all. And the Oni Warriors will get it relatively comfortably. I mean, again, I guess the gold lead is still that bad, right? I mean,
yeah.
Experience, you're still catching up in a couple of categories. And so you can't be blinded by rage, right? I mean, that's the Jade Dragons get themselves a great defense. But then when you zoom out, I guess you are really risking just losing the game when you're team fighting from a massive deficit like they are.
I don't know how it would work, but having Rage have a blind on it would be very funny, just for the phrase.
Like for FidoK though, like the guy playing the Cullen gets like blinded.
No, I meant like the item Rage.
Oh,
like.
Wait, what is the energy? Is that rage for Cullen? Frustration.
Oh, yeah, it's his frustration meter. How grumpy is he really?
I think it is his rage meter.
Yeah, it is his rage meter. So, you know, good pull. Either way, maybe that's what it is. On his transform, it gives a blind.
Yeah, rage is not good enough as an item.
Or it blinds yourself. That feels bad.
Right. You're blinded by your own rage. You X-ball ult yourself. Yeah, I don't think rage as an item is strong enough. We should just add a blind. Every time you get a crit with rage in your item pool, it blinds your opponent. That's a worthwhile balance change.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's maybe exactly what Pagon, even though he's not building crit, needs here, because the Jade Dragons made a miraculous Phoenix defense work once, but a lot of that was Panda Cat charging up the ultimate.
He's still
getting
going to be
his
good
burst damage. Gonna need to make it happen yet again. Stun onto Neilma. Remember, Pagon's got poke damage as well. A lot of ranged poke where the Oni Warriors kind of need to get in. And you're seeing those two different mindsets clash at the Phoenix line.
And I think I admire this a lot from the Dragons because, like you said, they played it well around the Fire Giant to the extent that we know we can't win that fight. It's not going to be the greatest one for us. We're, like you said, 8K down, 9K down. You have to be incredibly careful stepping up to an FG like that because if you lose the FG and the fight, the game's just over because your Phoenixes are exposed. Instead, they go back to where they know there's a lot of success, and I think that this is a good split for them. FidoK is going to be more than adept at soloing and keeping people away from mid-Phoenix. And Panda Cat, at this point, without an EFG, is incredibly potent. They've got a minute and a half to try and work with here for the Warriors. And it's so awkward because if you step forward, the exact same play for the Dragons can happen again. And you mentioned it, but ranged poke is always going to be there.
Nika. Looking for Sam for soccer. Damage out from Panda Cat. Corbin Mike in Shards of Ice. Cubo Fred looking for the Ymir, but leaves empty-handed. Left side Phoenix goes down. As FidoK reinitiates on the front line, and the Oni Warriors got what they came for. No head for the hills.
I think that's an easy call to make, right? It's just, you know what? I'll take it. Let's get out of here now, because that is what's going to be comfortable for you. You can't stay for the fight. You have a minute left on your FG buff, and maybe you could try to pivot some of that aggression over towards the mid Phoenix, knowing that a lot of that utility is now down for the Dragons. But you're missing beads on 2 people. It doesn't feel incredibly safe. With only a minute left, I like where they're going. Back up, swipe some jungle away from the Dragons if you can. At least get your own. Get yourselves a Trebuchet lined up. And there's about to be a Primal Fury. Based on the this or that, I know a lot of people chose Oni Fury in the this or that, but there was a lot of Primal Fury discussion in that. So I think that, and it's worth talking about, because you're looking at now an EFG that's going to be coming up next, Pyromancer over there as well. Getting a Primal Fury feels like it is incredibly important for the next team fight, especially with the lead you have. I mean, the Warriors are in a beautiful position to try and continue and close out this game.
So Pagon in an awkward spot, had a few hundred gold, buys Potion of Power instead of a tier 1 of the next item. So FidoK caught up in build. Everyone else fully 5th slotted, still waiting on their 6th item, whereas the Oni Warriors have been able to finish out their builds outside of Nilma. So a still a clear full 1 item advantage. Kivo Fred has got 4,000 gold. So a big power potion. This one, the Elixir of Defense, ends up being the choice for Kivo Fred. Wants to be able to get a bit more active and a bit more safe in jumping into these team fights. I wonder now, though, I mean, with the left side Phoenix gone, of course, life is always going to be difficult for the Dragons. With this being enhanced, I wonder if this is a line that the Jade Dragons have to draw. I mean, you couldn't hold them at bay under a regular Fire Giant. May need to try to poke out, find some damage, find a fight under the enhanced if you're the Dragons.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how far into this you feel super confident. I like this positioning, right? But one,
I mean, again, you got range advantage, but
how much is the range advantage? You know, because like gold advantage being so heavily in one-sided, especially with this kind of positioning, man, that's an easy way to pick somebody out. Mike's got to be careful.
Core, it may just not matter if Polar Bear Mike dies. If FidoK dies, the conversation is for naught. And FidoK does die, and Sam for Soccer does die. The Oni Warriors, a massacre here down the stretch in game number 2, and suddenly Pagon and Pandacat, the last 2 on the map. Still an enhanced Fire Giant to be taken. And I think a game to be taken for the Oni Warriors just over the horizon.
Look, they got fire minions. I think Pandacat, this is the threat Pandacat and Pagon can exude, because they've got fire minions going into the Titan room, and the Warriors, instead of opting to just run straight through it, through the Phoenix, through the tower, and get there, opt to go back for the Fire Giant. They've got 30 seconds left for a lot of the respawns on the Dragon, so it's not like they had a fire burning under them to make sure that it happened quickly. But that is a lot of time that is going to be wasted, and if they go the slow route, they've got a Trebuchet. Fire minions are being dealt with. By the time they get through this Phoenix, FidoK should be respawned, if not just about to come back. And so this is going to be riskier if they decide to go into the room, just because of the respawns that'll come through. They still got the advantage, though.
Yeah.
With an EFG, it's going to be the easiest 3 Phoenixes down that they could find.
And you get the enhanced Fire Giant regen. If you go back and spend up all that gold, again, there's not much to spend up outside of upgrading your relics. Wow, and it will be the slow play for the Oni Warriors.
I feel like they definitely could have won that.
I was for certain that we were going to just forego the enhanced Fire Giant entirely.
And just run, right? Straight into the, like, ignore the tower, ignore the Phoenix. Just go
I guess the argument is, now the Oni like, what's the difference in win percentage with a full 5-on-5, 2.9 Phoenixes down under the Titan that's 70% HP versus 5 versus 2 with no Phoenixes down. Yeah,
the damage numbers from Pandacat and Pagon are just high enough,
right, to make that interesting.
It's like,
yeah, but
if you go in a 2v5,
yeah, but they're still on the map.
Well, you had fire minions for a little bit, and so with fire minions,
I think
they don't back and clear there if you get aggressive. I think they could. I agree. I think they could have won.
I mean, it's like it was maybe a 90% chance for them to win there versus like a 99% chance to win now, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know though. You're risking a full 5-on-5 team fight turnaround. Anything can
happen. And this
happen.
is where the Dragons fought back earlier. It's the left side Phoenix. I mean, Pandacat can go huge here.
Look, Oni Warrior should win this game. You've got fire minions walking into the base. You're going to be able to jump on the Titan.
Man,
But-
you just had to do him like that. That's a nasty caster's curse you
They
tried
should.
to throw out there.
Look, they should. I'm not wrong. Whether I cast them or not is up to the Oni Warriors. They should win this game. 3 Phoenixes down, enhanced Fire Giants on all 5.
Fire minions,
and Fire
in the
Minions
Titan
in the
room.
base. You should win this game. So the conversation likely does not matter, but crazier things have happened. Dragons at this point just trying to delay the game, but Sam for Sucker, my God. Goodbye. And goodbye game 2. Oni Warrior shutting down the targets. Shutting down the Jade Dragons. On to a game 3 we go.
Yeah, look, 3-0-12 there for Cubo. First off is a nuts slash line for the Fenrir. I think a lot of good assists for him, but Dardez, in my mind, very easy to talk about. I think a lot of good setup coming down from that Morrigan. And then a lot of it became to the certain point where it was like, okay, now we're just ahead.
Yep.
So we're gonna fight better than you. We've got more items. We hit harder. And you had mentioned it. We talked about it. Left side Phoenix was a good example. That one defense the Dragons had. Range advantage, really good plays, good engage from the Dragons could potentially turn fights over in their favor. But how often are you going to get that against a team that, you know, at the time was like 8,000 gold, and then the next time you fought was 10,000 gold, and then the next time you fought was like 15,000 gold? The further that gap got, the harder it came to make that play again.
I don't know there was a Xing Chen on the map, Gore. The Oni Warriors were just ahead. Yeah, baby!
Okay.
Oni Warrior
Yeah,
tie us
okay.
up. Game 3 coming up next.
Straight from a party, we're all on a roll tonight. Women be sparky, again. We turn and feel the heat. Straight from a party. Music's coming your way. I will be smiling. You'll be so fine. Do you believe there's a young world in my heart telling me to dance, taking a chance? If you believe there's a young world come about, young world shaking the ground, straight from a party, clubbing till the morning break, moving your body, talking to my soul. And I got all my sisters to the right. We'll be moving till the break of light. And I got all my brothers within sight, turning till the clock will strike 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty people dance, pretty baby darling. Pretty people dance, pretty baby darling. Pretty people dance.
Well, a couple of stumbles along the way, but the Oni Warriors are able to clean up their act in game number 2 and bring themselves a victory to tie up the set. And now take us to game number 3 up against the Jade Dragons. A little bit more of a traditional style of composition coming from the Warriors this time. Even despite dropping the first 3 kills of the game right away, able to bounce themselves back and find themselves a win here up against the Jade Dragons. It's J-Mac and Mifflin with game number 2 now done. Much better the Oni Warriors, I mean, able to hold out in team fights more often. Sure, there was a stumble at the left Phoenix earlier on. That's when the Jade Dragons were able to finally find some kind of punch back, but at the end, the Oni Warriors team fight just very clean throughout.
Yeah, I gotta agree, man. I mean, the Jade Dragons do strike first, as you said. 3 kills cleanly to start off this match, but it was one team fight around the Greater Scorpion on the right-hand side, this exact team fight. And I'm thinking to myself, no way the Jade Dragons lose from here. They chose this engagement around the Greater Scorpion. Mike lands a double freeze into a fully channeled double ultimate. And I looked at him and I'm like, well, Mike's not taking any damage. Well, someone's got to be. Oh, it's everybody else on the Jade Dragons getting absolutely slammed. And that seemed to be a common thread throughout the duration of this match. The Oni Warriors at times just finding their opportunities to completely ignore the front line, Final K and PBM. And a lot of these highlights likely will be the 2 last members of the Jade Dragons to die, because the Warriors were like a precision scalpel in their target selection, just finding those ideal targets every single engagement. And sure, there were some stumbles, but you're allowed to stumble on a left Phoenix Siege if you establish as dominant a lead as they had after you had controlled the map state up until that point. And it shows. Sure, stumble into a dub.
Even throughout, I mean, there were many moments where, you know, you're talking about, okay, well, PBM's not taking a lot of damage. Oh, well, Final K's also not taking a lot of damage. Those two were able to hold out a lot of their HP bar, but when it came down to, I mean, when we look at the Oni Warriors over the last few successful sets they've had, a couple of the pieces that have worked really well for them have been Dodgy and Morgan, usually as a combo together, but as long as they have one of those two, usually the Oni Warriors are able to find some success. The Dodgy banned away from them in games 1 and 2. The Morgan able to come out in game number 2 for the Oni Warriors, and you can see the impact that Dardes had. Not very often that Morgan, as a god, is able to put out top damage on the board, let alone nearly 30k throughout this game.
Yeah, Neoma as well has a phenomenal performance. I believe 0-1 and 16 at the end of that match. The nearly perfect support slash line. So the Oni Warriors, when they get back to their bread and butter, seem to find some success, because that is just a standard Warriors draft through and through.
That is just, when you look up the Oni Warriors, this is the style of composition, the type of gods that you would imagine these guys playing. I've also got to maybe think for the Jade Dragons. They've given Nika this RDO 2 times in a row now. Maybe start looking at that as something that maybe they could take for themselves, give it over to Final Case. They have something in that lane to be able to play that bully, to be that front line when they get to those team fights. But no knock towards Final K, who was doing a great job on this Kukulkan. Unfortunately, just became the target of being Ragnaroked into Dharmic Pillars multiple times throughout team fights.
Yeah, they used to be called like the shake and bake combo because you could like pick them up and just run them back and forth.
Unfortunately, we can't do that
ultimate.
anymore.
Yeah, darn design team taking away our
Taking
fun
our fun.
for the sake of balance. God, what losers, nerds.
They had 2 times that it's had to be taken away. We had the original Shake and Bake, then there was the Shake and Bake 2.0 with Scotty Ice when that came out.
Yeah.
And then that got taken away, and now we got Dharmic Pillars, and they're like, yeah, we're not letting that happen a 3rd time.
And Ganesh is still good somehow? Crazy. That god is nerf resistant.
Man, you're telling me a god who has like a silence, a bunch of protections that come with that silence, a Dharmic Pillar that does a lot of damage, and prot shred and soul and slows people, also gives power to their teammates when he hits them with the one ability.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty good. Also can't take your kills. You got to feel if you're good of anybody else on the team.
Well, that's why I'm not playing him. I didn't know he did any of that stuff because I refuse to play a god that can't get kills. So.
Oh, I should have just started with can't give kill or can't take kills or whatever from your teammates, and you'd be like, yeah, I'm never touching that god again.
Yeah, we're done with that. All that other stuff sounded pretty cool though. Maybe I will try him out in like a duel matchup.
There you go.
No
that
allies.
Way at least you can get one there. Maybe the Jade Dragons can rally back in game number 3. Picks and bans ready to go. And the MO for the Jade Dragons so far for their bans have been Dodgy, Osiris, and AMC. 2 gods away from Cuvo Fred. 1 god taken away from Dardes. We'll see if they continue that trend. No, it will not. First change out, Osiris out. And so will now the Artio be removed from the table. Though Jade Dragons can still ban one of those other 2 picks away.
Speedrunning?
Apparently we are going through speedrun. This is picks and bans any %.
Yeah, that is a very quick phase there. I suppose both teams having got plenty of data on each other now as we go into game 3. Don't need to think too hard about their bans. Caster's Curse, the only Warriors, gonna do their best to make me wrong.
They're getting a bad split in their 6th run
yeah,
here.
dude, we are like -5 right now.
Yeah,
they gotta hurry up.
This isn't looking so good, though. The only Warriors will continue up the bans that they had in the prior matchups there. The Umoja's still not going to make it through. Xing Chen giving them too much trouble in game 1, not going to let it through game 2 or 3. And now 1 more ban over to the Warriors, who have really slowed down this speed run. They're definitely not going to make it to SGDQ anytime soon.
Yeah, that's messed up, man. Look, I suppose you could target out some jungle picks. Hunbots was one that performed very well, but you're not really dedicating a ban to bots in general, so instead, Chernobog taken off the table. The Jade Dragons now pick of the field, take Osiris as their first selection. Flex potential between both solo and jungle. Feels like we've been seeing him a little bit more often in the jungle recently. Mannequin Scepter start with the Golden Blade, just so strong early. Some of the changes to Stone Cutting Sword in the most recent seasons has made it a very strong item for these gods that have got bruiser tendencies built into the kit. So being able to strip away protections and give them to yourself as you've got mitigations already makes you a not only high DPS god, but a pretty survivable one. Osiris, just fine as a first pick overall.
And with that Osiris pick, it kind of acts as that double ban there, where before they were banning it away from Cuvo Fred, not letting him have that one. This time they get to remove that as a ban, take Nika off of something he's been comfortable on, and then get that pick up for themselves. So now the Oni Warriors have a couple of picks over to themselves. Bologna, who's been kind of largely overlooked in this set specifically. In our first set of the day, that one was picked every single time, usually top 2 by the Tartarus Titans, but now we'll make it to the Oni Warriors draft. And the Morrigan immediately right back at first after the strong performance, I think it was like 8-1 or 8-2 that Dardes had in game number 2. I don't see any reason why you don't give that one back to him.
You think that Bologna's going to the Soul Lane?
I hope so.
I hope so too.
I really hope so.
I mean, I wouldn't mind a Bologna jungle. I feel like she might be slept on in that role.
That's a throwback.
I'm kind of done with Bologna ADC
That's back
though.
to the days when like Chuckles and those guys were actually playing in their respective league.
Wow, why is Chuckles catching a stray on the desk?
No, because that was like the days of like Bologna and Freya jungle back in the OCE. I mean, like that was that time frame. I don't think we're there anymore, but you never know.
Yeah, time is a flat circle. So I'm not rehashing that. That time would actually be a flat circle if I made that joke again. Bologna locked in. Alongside the Morgan for the Oni Warriors. A strong top 2. Performance very good from Dardes in game 2, so no surprise that he's reprising his role as the Morgan. And Bologna should be able to hold her own, even if it is an Osiris over towards the Soul Lane. That matchup not exactly favoring one over the other. Osiris, if he so chooses, going towards Death Soul in that first slot, should have sustained advantage at least for the first 6 to 7 levels. But after you get a couple of points in a Scourge, Bologna should be able to make up that difference.
Fafnir and Yu Huang for the Jade Dragon. So Mike going to go back to a pick that he played 5 times in a row prior to this set, and we'll now get it for a 6th time within those 8 games. So Mike has plenty of practice on this god, and potentially Panda Cat, plenty of practice on this Yu Huang. Played 2 games in a row this set and 1 game from the previous one, so we're now sitting at 3 for Panda Cat, but always keep you just guessing with the Jade Dragons. You never know exactly where they're going to drop these picks out. Oni Warriors save QO Fred's pick for last in the previous game and may just be following that same suit here as Ganesh is once again locked up for the Warriors.
Yeah, it seems like the Warriors really liked how Game 2 went, so they want to get as much of the same as they can. Jade Dragons, on the other hand, with the Yu Huang locked in again. I'm not sure, man. Do you really want Panda Cat playing it again? I mean, I'm not hating it.
Do you?
I'm not hating it, but survivability towards mid and some early pressure from Yu Huang could deal with the Morrigan very well. The Morrigan, historically a god that struggles in just clearing out her own camps and her own farm, could struggle even more so against the early pressure that Yu Huang establishes. I mean, you can go back towards a Hunter as well, try and keep that pressure up that way. I suppose it depends on the jungler, sort of like the selection of the Oni Warriors. If it's like a super high pressure jungler, I think I would prefer to see these Yu Huang in mid just because he has so much survivability. Because junglers, for the most part, they'll rotate over to the duo, but it's like once, maybe twice, 3 times a game. How often are junglers in mid? Like most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go from one side of the jungle to the other side of the jungle, and the way to do that, usually got to cross over through that mid lane. Shibalanke, the pick for the Oni Warriors. So 3 games and now 3 different gods for Vote. It was Freya previously in that very first game. Didn't go so well. The Jing Wei ends up working out well for them this time. Ends up catching a ban from the Jade Dragons alongside that Fenrir. And the Oni Warriors, they'll go with a couple of solo lane targets there. The King Arthur and the Sobek banned away from Fine-OK. So with the Shibalanke going over towards Vote now in that dual lane, another fresh look for him. And once again, it does leave Cuvo Fred for his final pick of the team. And we'll see what he ends up going towards. Jade Dragons, though, maybe we'll get some questions answered as to where this Yu Huang is going.
Maybe. I mean, like, it could be like an Uul selection, and we're just like, I don't know. You know, it could be really difficult to figure it out.
Make it all the way again. That guy has been like top 3 every single time by teams.
Hey, it didn't do so good, did it?
True.
Yeah, so maybe that's why. And the Jade Dragons, if the Uul's so good, why aren't they snap locking it? Well, probably because they're not so happy with the last performance we've seen from it. Heimdall and Ymir hovered.
Wow.
If that's a Heimdall lock-in, I am willing to bet it all. Literally everything I've got that Yu Huang is going mid.
Well, for now, it's just going to be the Ymir. So now the question comes to, is this Sam taking the Ymir? Because I believe...
I'm betting it all. I'm all in. All the chips are on the table. That Heimdall, that's not going mid. There's no way. There's just no way.
I was trying to buy a little bit of time to see if the Heimdall did get locked in. Yes, and I won't try and pick your brain any further onto where it should go because I've already got your answer.
That's right.
But the Ymir, now we saw Sanford Soccer pilot this god once before in the jungle earlier on in the year. Haven't really seen Ymir solo in a hot minute. Do you think that this one would be going over to Sam? I mean, you're looking at what you've got on the opposite side. You're looking at what the Oni Warriors have between Bellona, Ganesh, or specifically you're looking at Bellona, Achilles going up against you. Is that a lane that you would want to put Ymir in or maybe throw him in jungle?
I am a pretty big fan of Ymir in the jungle personally, but looking at this composition, Bellona, you could stop the bludgeon with the freeze. Ymir solo finds some value there. You really want to be able to leverage early aggression, but Ymir and Osiris both have got pretty strong early game presence from the jungle. Osiris probably a little bit more so as you're more apt to go towards the bump or the what am I saying?
What are
bro?
you saying?
The one that does dot damage and burns them. Mannequins.
Mannequin Scepter.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Mannequin's pretty good for Osiris. So if I had to guess, Osiris has got to be going to the jungle. I'll toss Ymir to the soul lane, and that Heim better not be going mid.
Well, maybe let's hope for your sanity and for everything that you have that it's not going over that way.
I got very little. Please don't take it from me.
You put everything on. Oh, man, I'm going to feel so bad for Mifflin that Heimdall isn't going over to the dual lane at this point. The Jade Dragons coming out with some interesting picks. Once again, Ymir leaves some question marks as to whether that one's going. The Jade Dragons have been running this Yu Huang over in the dual lane more often than not. Not sure if they're going to run it there a third or technically, I guess, a 4th time in a row, a 3rd game in this set. And then the Oni Warriors going with still some more standard out there. A traditional Hunter over for Vote. Look good on the Jing Wei. I mean, how do you feel about the Shibalanke for Vote in this matchup?
Shibalanke is a pick that I think has become very interesting recently in that in the SCC, we've been seeing him a lot more often, and even some bans towards that god. He's got very high damage output. He synergizes well with the style of build that we saw Snoopy building in the SCC, which was Rage, Deathbringer, just like standard 2012 Hunter. But because he's got so much power built into his kit, I think you can kind of sacrifice a little bit of it in the build. I feel like Shibalanke is just blanket statement pretty good. You've got CC immunity to the dash, a nice slow from the poison darts, really good lane pressure thanks to the branching bola. If you so choose, Death Toll now an option. Now the Gilded Arrow isn't just the free 700 gold that it once was, so you get like the free mana sustain. I'm a Shiba believer.
Shibalanke, Ganesh in the dual lane, to be determined, and Fafnir over in the dual lane for the Jade Dragon. Should be interesting to see how that one pans out. And we'll see if Mifflin's going to lose it all here. Game number 3 between the Jade Dragons and the Oni Warriors. Where's everything going? Who's coming out on top? Let's throw it to Dave and Gore one more time.
Here's the good news for Mifflin. After whatever bet he took with Twitch chat last year, he literally has nothing else to lose. I think he's still like 50 grand in the hole, something like that. So he is betting.
But we did the whole Maxnomic code and everything. Oh, no, it was the store code.
Yeah, well, unlucky for Miff, or maybe lucky for Miff, it is Heimdall mid, despite Miff's bet and best
Dave,
interests.
You're going to have to take in Ellie. She's real good friends with Ramsey.
That's right. They can hang out.
You know what? He had one of my books at one point. I think Ellie ate it. So I'm not getting that back.
Oh, no.
In general, anyway.
And now I'm bringing that into my home? He's going to eat all my books?
I'm trying to think what other things, like his pickleball paddles, we can relinquish. J-Mac probably would take those.
I mean, his name carries some type of star power, right? Like, we could auction some of this to cover his...
Oh, yeah. To cover the debt.
The debt, right. Like, we gotta get an itemized, cost-based list of everything he owns, and then we can sell off stuff to cover it. Like a Miff-signed pickleball paddle. Somebody would spend like a few
we got to get him to
cents on
sign
that,
it,
right?
though, and he's going to charge us for that now because he lost everything.
Well, yeah, that's the point. He charges it and then...
No, like he'll charge like
us
for
the
us to
autograph?
get the autograph on the paddle.
Yeah, there's no gain for him to sign anything at this point. It's all gone, right? It's just less of it is maybe gone if he sells stuff.
Honestly, it's a really good start for Mifflin's minimalist lifestyle from here on out.
Anyway, this bit brought to you by the fact that Heimdall is indeed mid, and Panda Cat will be back on the Yu Huang over in duo.
Damn, I'm going to take Mifflin to Vegas with me. Whatever he bets on, I'm always going the opposite, and we're winning, baby. I'm winning.
I have to just wonder at this point. I want to pick the brain of one of our SPL players. At this point, is it not just better to have like Pagon still on the mage, but just over and duo, just swap what lane we're in? Is Pagon really a better Heimdall than Panda Cat is? I mean, there's more nuance to it than that. I mean, I guess playing in the mid lane is a skill in and of itself, and knowing how to control that lane, the instinct surrounding jungle pathing and stuff like that. But as far as players on picks, if you want a lane swap, surely...
I think a lot of it has to do with the farm, right? Like what you're going to get if you're alone over on left versus what you're going to get in mid and access to mid camps, red buff, things like that.
Right, but I mean, that's more like character-based, isn't it? Like, you're putting Yu Huang over there for the matchup? Or are you saying that, like,
I'm saying it,
you
like,
really want
strictly
Pagon
for, I think
specifically?
you want Pagon getting the farm on, and you want him on a hunter, and so you lock in the Heimdall, and like that's the train that I'm going down, is that him, Pagon in mid, on Heimdall gets more farm than probably Panda Cat, or maybe not more farm, more access to farm, more capable of farm for what you're going to see, and kill capable than what you're going to see out of Yu Huang, who admittedly after now level 3, like in the next level, you're just kind of coasting until level 12, so maybe it gives Pagon something a little more impact player now. And let's Panda Cat chill for a little while.
This is a very nuanced
Look,
discussion.
he's a Prime Gaming MVP. He can play whatever the hell he wants.
He can.
Okay?
You can. You're right. You're right. I'm not discrediting. I mean, Panda Cat has had some great moments on Yu
he's
Huang.
had some really good
kept Game 2 alive, as a matter of fact.
No, it's definitely an
It is a nuance
interesting...
because the question is, do you want Pagon specifically to get more farm, or do you want the Heimdall to get access to better farm in mid?
Or is it both? Like you want the Heimdall specifically played by Pagon?
Well, that's
like
the
that
question.
One gets really
is Pagon a better Heimdall?
Yeah, I guess at that point.
I don't know. There's a lot that goes into it. It is a unique style of situation. Doug has kept showing us Fine OK over on Ymir solo. Conduit Gem. Remember Pythag's piece? Is something that that Fine OK has already built earlier on in this set as a more unique style of build. Opportunities to cancel out some of the abilities from Nika, of course. And a swift half-level lead for Fine OK already over here in the solo lane.
I love Ymir, period. Like I love his kit, I love his passive. He's here all the time for you whenever you need him. But also, I just think that like just top 5 gods in Smite to me. Like he's really fun to play. I think that everything is interesting in how you level him because you can change how you level him based on how you personally are feeling. Like if you've got some hot walls that day, then you can level it up a little sooner. You know, here it's not going to be too surprising. Most of the time you're leveling your carpet, and then you're going to be going for either wall or freeze. Freeze, usually if you want a little more damage, wall if you want that duration, things like that. But like, I just think he's a fun, versatile god. And I like seeing him here, because as was mentioned, the freeze can interrupt the bludgeon. Of course, we don't get to see it there, so it's not maybe as impactful, depending on mana count, things like that. But I think that you are in a very solid position because you're on the right side of the map. You're positioned in a good place for Pyromancers, where we've been seeing a little bit, admittedly, still later in the game, but it's the first one that gets pressured out more often than not. And so you've got good rotation power there, and a little good staying power. Has the teleport as well. I want to see him get active throughout this game.
First ult of the game from Vote. It's ominous, but nothing ends up happening. It looks like blue buff invade. So some pressure out from the Jade Dragons. And look, Final K's done just fine on this Ymir. Now a purple buff invade, this time gone right. Simple 2 versus 1 for the Oni Warriors. You're always going to win that one. And PandaCat's got to watch his purple buff go down as Mike has rotated out of the dual lane, sends his talents onto mid lane, where Pagon now, of course, is going to have a little bit of extra pressure.
So this
over
is
Darkness.
just duo lane now.
That's what I'm saying. Just swap. Now, hear me out. Why not? If you're gonna, I was just gonna say, why not just rotate Mike and Pagon over to the left side, right? And then put PandaCat in mid. And that was the conversation we've already had here today.
Well, I know. I think a lot of it can come down to, and I'm with you. I want to pick their brains.
Like if I want Pagon specifically on Heimdall.
If the Dragons win this is like the easiest post-game interview because we've asked like 4 questions already for J-Mac to write down.
In reality, it's probably as simple as Pagon just wanted to play Heimdall, and PandaCat likes playing Yu Huang. Like
yeah, PandaCat was like, yeah, give me the Yu Huang early in the draft. And they were like, okay, Pagon, you got to play something physical. What are you going to pick up?
And that's,
yeah, give me Heimdall.
And that's it. Honestly, that's probably exactly what happened.
It's not like, because I'm sitting here thinking, okay, who gives pressure around? Like Gold Fury, does having Yu Huang in the long lane, he's a little safer so he can get back to the tower, but he's not like safer than a Heimdall. Heimdall's safe as hell. So where is that pressure coming through? And yeah, I think it might just be something incredibly simple.
And see, I think I'm less concerned about. We're both concerned about different things. You're wondering about why the god in each individual lane. I'm wondering why not put the actual guy who plays that role. Like put PandaCat on Heimdall in mid if you want Heimdall in mid. You know, we're so hung up on this. This is Devour's Gauntlet versus Bloodforged all over again, where he built. I remember. I don't know if I was casting with you or who it was, and I'll get a second to think about it. As another blue buff jumped on Sanford Soccer, taken low. But the fight is dropped. He was in execute threshold, but Cubo Fred won't end up flying through. And now it's retreat for the Jade Dragons, and Final K will see to it that the Jade Dragons get out safely. Looks like Nico was able to pick up that blue buff, was indeed. And so unsuccessful on their blue buff invader, the Jade Dragons.
But still, I want to say successful in avoiding getting first blooded, or if you're, the Warriors, maybe unsuccessful in getting a first blood, despite the aggression from the Dragons. Although likewise, they haven't been able to find that kill just yet, and that's not for lack of investment. I mean, a lot of ults get used to the point where Shards of Ice, like, it's it's easy to talk about because, man, as an ultimate, you root yourself in a single position. You are CC immune, so there's that. But you are stuck where you are, and while it does a lot of damage, it channels up over time, so that 3-second channel is maybe the biggest thing. It does decrease damage the earlier you pop it, but you still apply your Frostbite, and so there's like slow potential, things like that, but usually, at least as a support, like that is the least important thing in your kit, is your ultimate. Like, you can use it around objectives, and that's about it.
Sanford Soccer is blinked in here, has Tether out on a few, but Dardes is transformed into the Balloon. Allure to the Afterlife, disengage. How about the double stun from the Oni Warriors mid laner? Now Pagon's got a Bifrost backwards. Hopefully Bifrost away, as an ultimate from Pagon does connect onto one, but now the rundown is in, and Dardes grabs first blood. Stun through onto Polar Bear Mike, might mean another. And Cubo Fred hoping to chase it down. Stun no good. Final K out from solo lane. Shards of Ice slow down the Oni Warriors. And a wall all but secures his escape. And Dardes wags his finger, and the Oni Warriors will snag 2 kills.
I mean, that's not only a good first blood, a good chase down. The people that get out of there, Mike, Sam, the retreat they have is not the most convincing retreat. I mean, yeah, they get out of there, they live, but you have a lot more potential, I think, for the Warriors. That is an incredible fight for them. And I think that we get to see very similar aspects of what won the last game for them. It's not necessarily anything new or fresh. It's, hey, Dardes is really good at the Morrigan, and Neil Ma is really, really obnoxious against you when he's playing the Ganesh. Whether it's the Dharmic Pillars or the Ohm. I think we were talking about it the other day, but like Dharmic Pillars is on such a low cooldown, I think 75 seconds
Chronos Pen in here.
at base.
I want it.
At that point where we're like, I think we were talking about it because it was coming up like every 40 seconds with a Chronos Pendant or something like that. And so now you're looking at Neil, even at the base level, you're going to have that super often, but that is not even including the amount of control that you can bring between the Ohm and your single knock-up. So a lot of control just in those 2 picks, not including the fact that I think that Cuvo has had a really good day so far, and specifically here on this Achilles, the last 2 has looked really solid. And Nika comes in, you had called it out, a double stun. They're just playing clean, and they've got a good draft to work for it. Nothing out of the ordinary for it, except that they are just playing it to the standard it needs to work.
And Dardes has had a great day as well on this Morrigan, especially in a couple of games where there were a variety, and still are a variety, of transformation opportunities.
He plays tomorrow.
He does play tomorrow, doesn't he? King's
Hopefully.
hoping
God,
to bounce
man,
back.
I really hope so, because I do not remember the schedule.
That was a confident he plays tomorrow. I mean, all for the bit, right? The
All for the bit.
timing
It's
is
just for
everything.
the joke.
Timing is everything.
Yeah.
You had to get it out right then. And variety name jokes will seemingly never get old. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. Dardes has a variety of transformation opportunities.
Yeah.
No, he plays tomorrow.
We could do it one more
We
time.
can do it one
Comedy
more
comes
time.
in threes,
One more
baby.
time. One more time. But
But
I
he's
think
got a
Dardes has
variety
been. No, he plays tomorrow. Pyromancer goes to the Jade Dragons. I think Dardes has been on point. My point is not even all that great, but I'm going to get it out.
Yeah, God, it's got to be perfect now. We've hung too long.
I'm trying to say it without the word variety in it. Dardes has done well to choose transformations that have really fit the team fight at hand when there have been plenty of choices available to him and not one overwhelmingly obvious one.
Here's a good one. A myriad of options, right? He's got a lot available
No,
to
he's
him.
in the solo lane.
He plays tomorrow. I think that, oh wait, yours was a Ymir joke?
Ymir joke.
Mine was just, haha, that's like the variety. Okay, yeah, no, I'm stupid is what I'm getting at here. I missed that one over my head. I think that, yeah, there's a lot of options for him. Honestly, I think the options this game to me are way better than last time. You can become Achilles, Osiris, Bellona. Theoretically, you could do the Ganesh, you could do the Ymir, although you don't have to do either of those. I think the 3 warriors that are in this game are just really good choices for you. Might skip over Sam, depends on if you want the anti-heal or the tether, things like that. Really good dive potential for Dardes if he goes for the Osiris. Achilles, you get a double execute, good stuns, a lot of chase down, a lot of good damage there. And Bellona, just because Bellonas can be obnoxious. 2 Scourges, lots of silences, deals with Pagon pretty easily. Again, dive potential from the Bellona as well as the Osiris, I think, is very solid. And they'll be able to chase people down. So like you said, I think that there's a myriad of options that work out incredibly well for Dardes here. And I want to see where he goes more often than not, like what his mind is more comfortable with.
Well, in games like this, sometimes teams will just get caught asleep at the wheel a bit, and the Jade Dragons attempting to do so to the Oni Warriors. Mike transforms, hasn't used a Frenzy yet. AoE Coerce goes out, Gold Fury low, Dharmic Pillars dropped by Neoma. And the Jade Dragons pull off of the objective. Would have been a 3 versus 4, it looks like, but Dragons not happy enough with the looks of that Gold Fury pull. End up dropping back. Do spend the transformation from Mike, but not a massive investment around the Fury. Only Warriors able to stand strong, stand available, keep the objective on the map.
It's 1 ult for Mike versus 2 ults for Neil and Vote, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
It is a very small trade. The thing that interests me the most is more the farm for the Dragons, because if that Gold Fury goes their way, they get a massive advantage. But despite the kill disadvantage right now, they've still been pulling ahead of the Warriors. It's not a ton, but at least like a little bit, which is contrary to what we've seen in games 1 and 2. So I think that that's a good showcase of at least how they've been playing the map.
Oh
my God.
Yeah, that's a stun, and that's another kill for Dardes. I don't know who's got Dardes on their fantasy team, but they're happy with the last 2 games. 3-0 now on the Morrigan. And that's not a transformation. That's just walk in and follow up damage from Neilma. So Neil 0-3, Cuvo, Vote. No, wrong, 0-3. 0-3, yeah, they haven't died 3 times. 0-3 for a few members of the Oni Warriors. Pagon's got to ult away. Vote drops the ult on the left side of the map as well. And not only could he have gotten an assist, but actually disengages himself somewhat well as Sanford Soccer and Panda Cat were looming. A slow burn of a game here, Gore. The Jade Dragons, yeah, they pull the Gold Fury, but now the tier 1 tower in mid goes down. You know, minuscule gold lead for the Oni Warriors, so not all doom and gloom, but don't really show up to defend their tier 1 tower at the moment.
I am more interested, I think, now with that tier 1 and mid down. And it's a conversation we haven't gotten to have in a while, because usually, like, when the tier 1 and mid goes down, it's after tier 1s and other lanes have disappeared, but just the 1 in mid down for the Dragons is the only tower gone. That gives a special amount of control to some of the side jungle for the Warriors. I mean, that's a little bit of an advantage. You've taken away a safe haven from the Dragons, right? Pagon now has to go a little further if you want to retreat in mid lane. You got to go to a tier 2. Same thing for anybody who's over there.
Ooh.
Whereas Nika, right here, you can just run under your tier 1.
Nika gets stunned, but able to leap away with the Eagles rally. Good damage out from Cubo Fred. Sanford Soccer was in execute range, but Cubo Fred did not have Fatal Strike. And so Sam will end up walking out just fine. Still doesn't have Fatal Strike, otherwise Cubo Fred may have considered going in for it, despite a block opportunity from FineOK. Cubo's really stuck with this Achilles jungle. I mean, it's looked good. You get Golden Blade into more ability-based later on in the build. And I think Cubo Fred, not only this year and this phase specifically, but synergizes well with this style of pick.
Yeah, I think it plays well, and earlier I was wondering if he was going to go more hybrid, because in years past he's struggled a little bit. Voot going a little bit of trouble, but never mind, jeez!
You got it backwards, Gore. All right, you got it right, Gore. Pagon gets a kill onto Vote, but not before Vote turned one around. Up, down on the Eagles rally, as Pagon will Bifrost out and away. I believe that's Dardes who initiated as Bologna just a moment ago. And so a 1-for-1 trade ends up dropping Vote for Sanford Soccer.
Which questions always have to roll through. Is it more worthwhile to get one? Vote doesn't use either relic. And so in a circumstance where maybe, and that's a very heavy maybe, that Aegis could have let you live long enough for your team to respond and save you. I think that you get aggressive, you do well, you kill off the Osiris, and you end up, again, maybe giving 1 kill over, but it goes over to Pagon. Pagon gets forced out. I think the uncomfort that the Dragons felt from that fight, despite being somewhat successful in it, is a huge deal that favors the Warriors a little bit. So I think that grouping up 5-on-5, especially with the transformations that Dardes has right now, being on a 3-0, Beads being down, and of course ult being down, means we probably won't see anything big out of the mid lane for another couple of minutes. But I won't be surprised if they're going to be the ones who can start posturing over towards a Gold Fury, setting themselves up for something maybe a little bit bigger, and trying to pull some of that, again, very, very minuscule lead back over in their favor.
Tier 1 answered back by the Jade Dragons on right. Did a quiet game for FineOK, 0-1. Does go Pythax P, Sovereignty, a bit more utility later on in the build. Still waiting to see what this Ymir really has in store for the Oni Warriors later on in this game. Plenty of control in lane, but what do you got throughout the rest of game number 3, a pivotal game number 3? How different standings could look. So many teams so closely knit. Great opportunity for the Jade Dragons and the Oni Warriors to distance themselves from the pack. And one game nowadays seems to be a bit distanced from the pack with how close the SPL has been. Everyone's beaten one another. Oni Warriors remain competitive, so is the Jade Dragons. Neuma slowed just for eternity. And he'll get shut down. Pagon rotates in, and that is a simple kill onto poor Ganesh. Neil just didn't have much to answer back, and the Pyromancer pulled by the Dragons.
Yeah, there's so much, that, or only so much you can do, I think, there if you're Neil. Maybe try to get the Dragons fined for like poaching, hunting an elephant, something like that. But otherwise,
You can't do that.
I just think that they're going to do it again here. If they can continue
Eagles
this chase.
rally. Double Eagles rally. Double stun on the Sanford Soccer, who had no chance of getting out of that. And Dardes plus Nika equals painful. Dardes de-transforms, though. Pagon on the wrong side of this fight. Dardes could actually grab the stomach now. Dardes has got to leave. An awkward game of chicken over on the right side of the map. Final K left alone. Cubo Fred still has Fatal Strike. And so may end up being a kill on the Final K if Cubo Fred can just get a bit more damage. No, got to take the route out to the right and had to dodge all the damage from Panicat. Pagon, in the meantime, still on a world tour between the Tier 1 and Tier 2 tower, and it'll end up going down to vote. Only Warriors, they do not get the Pyro, but they do get a couple of kills.
That chase is just a little too short, I think, to use the Benny Hill theme, right? It was almost long enough if he got a little further.
We got like one saxophone note and then it was over.
Unfortunately, I mean, it was, I think, a really good call, right? You said he was deep. He goes over, tries to get a little bit of farm to push up even further on the right-hand lane. Gets caught out, kind of pincered down. Nika, Dardes rushing him, uses the Bifrost. Immediately, 4 Warriors turn and start running at him in the jungle. And so there wasn't a lot of opportunities to get out of there. But 2-2, not a terrible looking slash line. It's just that now, I mean, it's been 40 seconds without him, and it gave a numbers advantage to the Warriors. I like this call for a Fury.
Nika, though. That is a lot of CC onto the Bologna and a great wall from Final K. Gold Fury to the Oni Warriors. Now you just got to get out of this fight alive because the health bars do not favor you if you're the Oni Warriors, and it looks like they will indeed be able to disengage, and the Jade Dragons empty-handed in the Fury pit.
I love again, just the call. They get the pressure, they have the numbers advantage. You know that there's going to be a little weaker on Relics for the Dragons there, so take the fight where you can. This one's a little more interesting to me. Tier 1 in mid, deemed worth defending. They might even be able to kill off Sam.
Well, Sam doesn't have Lord of the Afterlife. Fatal Strike for Cubo Fred. Doesn't make its way through. Eagles Rally doesn't either. And now the rest of the 4 Jade Dragons members trying to fight in. And how about the damage from Pandacat onto Dardes? Slows down the initiation. Nika's done enough. And I think that might be the right call. Both tanks TKO'd from the fight. Nika's got to back off, so does Sanford Soccer. Ends up just being some poking and prodding, but Oni Warriors keep their Tier 1 and mid on the map.
Some big relics burned, though, right? The teleport being down for Nika maybe isn't the end of the world. Beads being down for Cubo is going to make things a little more difficult. Trying to dive as deep as you do on an Achilles, especially against a Ymir, against a Fafnir. A lot more consistent CC available for the Dragons here. And so if Cubo tries to go too deep, maybe in the wrong position, or any of these fights, if it erupts in the next 2 minutes, it's going to be a pretty easy turnaround, or at least easy CC to peel for the Dragons. Big news is instead that Dardes manages to keep their ult available. And that is a huge deal to me. After you get that Fury, now you've got your ult. Fire Giant's the only thing on the map, and this was around the time last game that we started to see a vie for the fight for the Fire Giant. So I think that they can start to go towards the right-hand side. Pyromancer's going to be up in a minute and a half, 2 minutes as well. So there is still an easy opening for the Warriors with pressure on this side to find an objective, even if it's not as big as the FG itself. And I think that's really where the focus needs to be, is trying to get some control. Ward vision's already in their favor. And if they can get a pick, it's going to be one of the easiest Fire Giants. Even if they don't, I think they've got the team fight to back themselves up to be in control of the FG pit.
Yep. Good tread from a couple members of the Jade Dragons. Look at Sam and Pagon, who've had decent games up to this point. Pagon has been hitting the eject button in seemingly every fight up to this point. The Bifrost and the ult from the Heimdall have just been so necessary under the immense dive that the Oni Warriors have brought forward. Sanford Soccer had a general idea where Dardes might be going there. But continued dive presence onto Pagon, a good look for the Oni Warriors. But also a good look has been Panicat on this Yu Huang. We've done plenty of speculating as far as, why the role swaps, why the lane swaps, why not change the players, who's playing on what. At this point, Pagon has proven that, or Panicat rather, has proven that whether or not Pagon is a better Yu Huang or not, Panicat is a worthwhile guy to have playing this Yu Huang, because damage numbers in a lot of these fights, even from a bit behind, have just been connecting and shredding Dardes, shredding Vote early in the fights.
And both of their damage numbers, I mean, 21,000 split between the two of them, I guess round up to 22,000 because of where their numbers are sitting at. And that's a good chunk of damage for the two of them to combine into. It's just so difficult, though, because like you said, it feels like Pagon a lot of the time in the last couple of fights has just been on the back foot, hasn't really been able to get aggressive. And there's only so much you can do as Yu Huang.
Uh-oh, Dardes looks for the stun, doesn't get it. And now with wall, tether, transformation forced, and an Eagles rally out from Dardes. But a couple members of the J Dragons left on the front line of the fight, being worked down by Dharmic Pillars. Cuvo Fred are on the left side of the Pyromancer pit. J Dragons a bit healthier and have the AoE Coerce out on the map. Frenzy not available any longer. A reset from Nika, but Nika will teleport to the mid lane tier 1. The Oni Warriors are going to stick around.
Yeah, Dardes is able to get back into the fight as well. That's an engage from Nika.
Oh, that's a big stun from Nika. And the J Dragons left running. No counter engage from the J Dragons. It was all used just a moment ago, but that's it from Panda Cat. Look at the back line, and the health is gone. Panda Cat, a big play on the front of this fight to turn around damage numbers, and look who's up top in the damage department. It's the Yu Huang out of nowhere.
I mean, that was just so beautiful. Walking in the corridor immediately, you're getting a massive line ability, Roots 3. I mean, that damage could not have been more from Panda Cat, the way that that lines up. Now with a Pyromancer, if they can kill off Vote here, this might just be a free FG for the Dragons.
Wow, that wall is great, but just slow on the follow-up on the J Dragons, and Vote will survive. I wonder, though.
I mean,
you would have to turn back immediately and gone to the FG to feel confident about it. So there was an opportunity. Remember, the Oni Warriors still ever so slightly ahead of this game. And the J Dragons don't want to risk it, risk the set, risk game 3 here on a Fire Giant call. I was thinking you might feel more confident if Cuvo Fred dies off, but instead this seems like pure objective play, transform, realize Cuvo Fred's out, and get to tier 1.
I mean, it feels like a game of inches, right? Any little bit you can get is going to give you enough that you can at least start pushing forward. Gold-wise, not really that different. Map state-wise, both teams have knocked down 2 tier 2s. It's all in this fight.
Mike in, wall up, Nika in the back line. Ultimate out from Vote. Cuvo Fred has big damage onto Panda Cat and Pagon. Both of them gotta go. Execute, hits one, execute. Finds a second target, but not a second kill. Cuvo Fred opens up the killing.
That's a good
Vote
kill.
answers back. Fine, okay, hands the double to Cuvo Fred and the Oni Warriors with a big chase down.
And now, look, they've got time on their side. 50 seconds in a 2v5, and Sam has to go back to base. PBM has to go back to base. Too low to even think about trying to contest this. Nika gets a little bit of break time because he had to go back and heal himself up, but just a good engage. I mean, getting that much damage so early on onto Pagon and specifically onto Panda Cat, making the Dragons regret going up as far as they did. Immediate turnaround for the Warriors. And talking about the dive, their potential, it was met in that case. They were able to get into the back line, follow it up incredibly fast. They kill off Pagon very quickly, chasing him down like it's nothing, burning both the relics there. Then Panda Cat just is left in a kind of awkward spot. You're Yu Huang, you have a lot of safety, but it only goes so far. And unfortunately, once it ran out, he was stuck standing behind 5 members of the Warriors alongside Fine OK. And Fine OK did his best to peel, at least what he could, but it did not give enough space for them. So I think, again, maybe a good start for the play for the Dragons, but just a brilliant turnaround by the Warriors. And that might be one of the biggest swings and the strongest swings that we've gotten to see this game.
Could potentially be a game-ending swing if the Oni Warriors are able to push that advantage. Oni Fury confirmed. Still plenty of towers on the map for the Oni Warriors to work down, so Titan's still going to be relatively strong at this point. Would need a deicide under probably an already killed off Phoenix for the Oni Warriors to end it on this Fire Giant buff. Now the J Dragons under this very Phoenix in game number 2 were able to put up a good defense. A team comp built somewhat similarly. Got to keep your eyes on Panda Cat and how far along that build is. Good burst damage from the Yu Huang. It just feels like the team fighting, that second wind in the team fight has just been so on point from the Oni Warriors this game. Where it looks like Fine OK and Mike, yeah, they got the 2-man wall, they got the initiation. And then some flank, some re-engage from the Oni Warriors has flipped things around.
This is a good spot. I'm keeping my eyes on Kivo on the map. I thought for a second he was going to loop around and try to pince right between these two, or this tier 2 tower, and go between the Phoenix and try to find a pincer onto Pagon, onto Panda Cat. Maybe an opening. Right now, keeping the Osiris preoccupied. Now he's making the rotation.
Evo Fred will avoid the damage, but does put enough pressure on the Jade Dragons to make them back off. And so, if the Oni Warriors, I was thinking maybe setting a trap for the Jade Dragons, but won't be, and the Oni Warriors head back to base. And a couple of towers on the right side. Definitely a setup style of Fire Giant. You're going to finish off some of the build score. I mean, still pretty far behind Sanford Soccer as far as build goes. Luckily, experience, even at this point. But gold still matters by a decent margin for the Oni Warriors team. Relic's not even upgraded yet. As the Jade Dragons needing to find a great engage here in a couple of minutes. Otherwise, you're looking at a lost set in Game 3.
Now I'm trying to figure out, you know, much like you said, where exactly the rallying line is, because you've lost a lot more. I mean, similar map state actually to Game 2 towards the end, right? You've got 2 Phoenixes exposed, 1 Tier 2. I'm surprised the Dragons are stepping up as far as they are. I think they can delay a Tier 2 no problem, but not by a lot. And so I like the call to immediately fall back. But with Pagon as far away as he is right now, it's still going to take a little bit to regroup. It's not going to be an opening wide enough for the Warriors to get super aggressive, but at least gets them a wave into the Phoenix. This is where Panda Cat specifically went massive in the last game, though. Being under the Phoenix, the Yu Huang, having just any mage that has standardized abilities like a Yu Huang is going to be good under a Phoenix. It's going to be good for the root that it has, the damage numbers we saw earlier. I mean, there's a reason he's up at the top still, despite being 0-1-1. It is just because he hits incredibly hard. And a good ult, well placed and well timed, pulls Warriors into an unforgiving fight under the Phoenix. Luckily, he's not going to have to think about that for a little bit. Right now, they've got to think about whether or not it's worthwhile fighting over this FG. And last time around, after the first Fire Giant, the second one was, what, 27 minutes in? Something like that. So it wasn't enhanced. You were still down a lot in levels, not just in support, but your jungler was down. Sam was, I think, 19 or 18 to the 20 for Cubo Fred. It just felt awkward to try and fight in because the gold lead, everything was against you. Here, gold's definitely not doing any favors for you, but at least experience-wise, everything's equal. And this one's going to be enhanced. This one is a gimme, like, yes, if this Fire Giant goes down to the Warriors, we're going to lose a Phoenix at the minimum. At worst case scenario, we are definitely losing the game, right? So you have to be, I think, more present for this one. I almost think that the fight, if it starts to go south, easy enough to fall back, but it feels like you have to defend this one and not just let it up, because otherwise the Warriors, they've been finding a lot of success all over the map, and they could probably take that to the Phoenix line, no problem.
Said the Jade Dragon, should they find an opportunity, they find an opening, a team fight. Only the 3 Tier 2 towers remaining on the Oni Warrior side of the map, so nothing that'll really delay the Jade Dragons. Map state, yes, in favor of the Oni Warriors, but depending on a team fight win for the Jade Dragons, an opportunity to fight in. Enhanced Fire Giant started, but slowly. FinoK takes a mountain of damage at the start of this fight. Just about a third of the Ymir's health bar is gone. Has teleport, therefore the ability to get back in a bit quicker, but the Oni Warriors slow on pulling the FG. They want to do it again, and this time they want to do it to Polar Bear Mike, who's able to jump out, but the kill gifted over to Nika by Nilma as the Dharmic Pillars over the wall. Got number 1, Cubo Fred execute. Yes, sir, kill number 2 in this fight for the Oni Warriors. And again, the Jade Dragons divided. The Oni Warriors group up, find their individual picks. And Gormizer, it's looking like the Oni Warriors are going to close out this set against the Jade Dragons here in Game 3.
Yeah, FinoK is leading Neil on a tour of the map, and that one's going to last a long time. I don't think we have much kill potential here unless FinoK just into a Phoenix. Neil's not going to do any damage. The rest of the team, though, yeah, this is going to be a free opening for them. Nika's a little low, so they're going to have to be careful with how they try and tank this, but Cubo's doing a good job. And that's what I want to highlight. Not just the Mantle. The Mantle of Discord, that was standard. We got that last time. I love this Nemean pickup from Cubo, and I think it does a lot, because in that last fight, he jumps onto Pagon, and Pagon specifically, and he just eats so many, those block stacks helping so much in terms of how well he's able to aggress forward.
Wow.
And so I think that they just play really well. Cubo has a nuts game. Dardes, surprise, surprise, plays a really, really good Morgan set. And so I think that they come into this Same game plan as game number 2. Their farm early game maybe doesn't work out the exact same way, but their objective play works out even better than what we got to see. No steals, nothing crazy, no fancy footwork from the Dragons that changes things up. It is just good play through and through from the Warriors that get them small leads, that lead to big leads, that lead to better fights. And a lot of it was that one where they managed to get Pagon and Panda Cat super early off in that fight. And if one of them, just one of them, is outside of that range and doesn't get hit, maybe there's a resurgence for the Dragons, but that was too beautiful of a setup for the Warriors to fight back from.
Well, it was a quiet set from Sanford Soccer. I wonder if at some point the Jade Dragons go back, reassess the Yu Huang duo lane, Hunter in mid lane. I mean, it works once in this set, has worked in the past for the Jade Dragons, but lacked a bit of the oomph in the last couple of games here. And the Oni Warriors able to take game 2. They grab game 3 as well, and therefore the set over the Jade Dragons. That's it for this one. We'll go back to the desk to round out the day.
Thank you so much, the Oni Warriors. It was something that we talked about at the beginning of the death segment, that depending on which two versions of these teams come through, we could either see a fast 2-0 one way or the other, or if both these teams are coming out with full cylinders running, we could see a pretty back-and-forth 2-1 set, and that's what we get here. Game number 3, the Oni Warriors come out on top over the Jade Dragons. They push themselves a little bit further up in their standings, and we're getting a little bit of that reprise from the Oni Warriors of Phase 1. It was a question that some of us had. You know, they had a strong Phase 1. Was it a fluke? Was it just kind of a one-time thing? The Oni Warriors are out here to prove today that that was not a one-time thing. This is a newly revitalized Oni Warriors team. They're able to adapt to the strategies the Dragons are bringing out, and they're able to do it pretty well, Mifflin.
Yeah, good look for the Oni Warriors and their fans, I'm sure, very happy to see the performance that this team was able to cobble together coming into today. And this is a dominant performance from minute 1. Well, maybe minute 10. It's a bit of a slower pace than what we might be used to from the phases of past, but certainly the Oni Warriors maintained the kill advantage throughout the entire duration of this match, at times struggling to convert it into actual neutral objective wins or even a gold lead, but never faltering in establishing kill presence. And eventually, once they did pull a lead, it was a massive one. It felt like, oh, we're up 5 kills, we're up 6 kills, the gold's like 500, maybe 600 gold separated. Oh, we're up 7 kills now, and all of a sudden it's a 7,000 gold lead. Oh, whoa, gotta keep my eyes on the screen. The game could end at any moment. And the Oni Warriors do exactly that after they get their first Fire Giant and their 7-kill lead. Now we're looking at like a 10,000 gold lead, and it really started to balloon from there. Felt like the Jade Dragons didn't really have much left in the tank insofar as base defense. Panda Cat at times falling into the trappings of getting a bit aggressive. I think something that has served him very well in his professional career, but in this matchup in particular, you get aggressive on Yu Huang. It doesn't really matter how safe you are. You float like 10 feet, and then Nika's like right on your head.
Yeah, Nico is always in that backline. A 2-0-8 from him in the solo lane, 3-0-8 for Cuvo, and a 5-0-6 for Dardis. So 3 players on the Oni Warriors going undying in this third and final game of the set. Neilma with the 0-1-10, and then Boat also being able to make some strong plays on that Shiva Lanke, coming out nearly at the top damage chart, but once again, it is Dardes topping it at least for his team. This Morrigan has been an essential puzzle piece for the Oni Warriors. The times that they are able to get it, Dardes and the rest of the team look really good, kind of rallying around this pick. Cuvo Fred able to come back here in game number 3, look good as well. But before we go any further into discussion, we do have a post-game interview staying by the solo laner for the Oni Warriors. Nika staying by. Congratulations, first off, on your 2-1 win over the Dragons. And how's it feel coming out of, phase number 1, you guys had a real standout performance. Masters, a bit of a stumble, but now that you guys are hitting this halfway point so far in phase 2, I mean, how's the team feeling with your win today?
Great. I mean, I think the Dragons have always been like a big hurdle, and like we usually fall down to them because like when it drops enough pressure, we get ran over. But today we addressed that really well. Even game 1, we were in control, just like one bad decision. And I mean, ultimately, we're just all really proud of how clean we played in those team fights.
Yeah, your games 2 and 3 definitely a much cleaner play through than game number 1. And one thing that we talked about last week for the pregame interview, kind of segment through, and he was talking about how the late game is really where your team starts to come together, trying to battle through that early game. Was that a lot of what y'all were going through with your drafts and kind of your play styles to just battle through the early?
I mean, we were just making sure that we had lanes to play through and just had pressure to get us to late game, because when we get to like full build, I mean, we're pretty confident taking anyone on. Not really scared of anyone in those team fights.
Yeah, the wins you guys have had so far this phase have looked pretty good. Talk to me a little about the solo lane, because we've had so many meta changes in the solo lane. I mean, at one point we're seeing Hunters in every single game, then we saw some of the Warriors come back. Is solo lane just all over the place right now, man?
Yeah, I think we've come full circle to, Guardians are back now, and like I'm glad they banned RTO that game 3. I was not looking forward to another one of those. But yeah, I think we're kind of in that spot where like Guardians is creeping back, and like if RTO's open, she's like kind of controls the lane and like what plays around it. But yeah, War is still strong. They look good as long as they can get through that laning phase.
Yeah. Well, you guys look good in your set. I'll let you get back with the
Also,
team.
quick shout out to Tectone and Strippin. I know they're watching right now. Hope they enjoyed.
Oh yeah, that was the team that you were coaching,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
we won the tournament.
Congrats on that one, by the way.
Yep,
Big
thank you,
win
thank
over there.
you.
And,
Which was
congrats-
bigger, that or this?
Ooh.
That one, obviously. That's the biggest tournament in Smite history.
Well, congrats on your win today. Congrats on your win in the previous tournament with Miskiff and all that. Thank you so much for coming by. I'll let you get back with the team.
Thank you.
You got there, Mifflin.
Yeah, I'm going to get a talking to. I shouldn't have asked. I shouldn't have asked.
If you guys are unfamiliar with, they did have the OTK Mistiff tournament this past week. Nika was the coach of the winning team out there, so he's definitely been having some success inside and outside of the SPL. Able to find a win today, though, over the Jade Dragons. A good look for him and the rest of the Oni Warriors. Let's take a look, though, at the schedule, because that's all that we've got for you today for the SPL. We still got plenty more to go here in week number 4. We'll be back tomorrow, 1 p.m. The Olympus Bolts and the Camelot Kings, and then the Valhalla Valkyries and the Atlantis Leviathans will face off to round off our Saturday, and then we have our triple header Sunday as per usual, kicking those things off with the Leviathans and the Scarabs on that day.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this Bolts Kings matchup. I think that is going to be probably one of the most important matchups this week. The Olympus Bolts sitting right at the top. The Camelot Kings would love to leapfrog them.
100%. More than anything else. I mean, the Olympus Bolts and the Camelot Kings were coming into this week undefeated, then both get shut down by the Leviathans, and now the two of them definitely want to see who's going to come out on top with the win there by the Oni Warriors. They're able to bump themselves up now into the 3rd seat comfortably. The Jade Dragons and the Leviathans and the Titans all right behind them. So this is still a very contested top 6 in the SPL. Let's see who comes out on top tomorrow. But that's all that we got for you guys today. On behalf of myself, Mifflin, Caster Production, everyone behind the scenes, thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow for more Smite Esports.